It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. You are in luck. A great show to come. It always is great when Amy Webb's here from the Future Today Institute and one of the original Twit stars, Kevin Rose, the Dark Tipper. We have lots to talk about. Kevin's an expert on blockchain and modern finance. We'll talk about his CryptoPunk collection. The ship's still stuck. We'll get a traffic report direct from the Suez Canal. Twitter's unofficial mayor quits. Is there anything Twitter could have done better? And then Kevin will show us his bones. He just got a full body scan, and the pictures are amazing. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 816, recorded Sunday, March 28th, 2021. Who owns the clone? This Week in Tech is brought to you by Babel. Babel's made learning a new language fun and easy with bite-sized lessons you'll actually use in the real world. Purchase a 3-month Babel subscription and get an additional 3 months free. Go to Babel.com and use the promo code TWIT. And by Udacity. Build your tech skills through industry-leading programs created and recognized by top companies worldwide with a nano degree from Udacity in as little as 12 weeks. Visit udacity.com/twit and use the coupon code TWIT at checkout to get 50% off through May 30th, 2021. And by Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month, and get it shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/twit. And by Molecule. Molecule is reimagining the future of clean air, starting with the air purifier. It's not just an innovation on existing technology, it's a scientific breakthrough in air purification. To save up to $120 on an air purifier, visit molecule.com and enter the code TWIT120 at checkout. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news this week. A panel of three if you include me, because we've got two of my favorite people on. Amy Webb is here from the Future Today Institute. I honestly think we could just do a show with just Amy. She's so full of information, and her brand new 14th annual Tech Trends Report is out, so we'll certainly be talking about that. Hi, Amy.
Hey, Leo.
Good Pesach. Happy Passover.
Thank you.
I said it in Yiddish. Is it gut Pesach? Is that what
Is it good? I don't know if it's like a good thing. I mean, we're all alive, so that part's
we made
good.
it. The Pharaoh didn't get us.
Yeah.
Had some haroset and some. Do you do the whole Seder thing? Do you hide the afikomen, the matzah, and do all that?
Yeah, we do the whole thing. And we put it, so if you don't know, you hide a cracker. When you explain these things out loud, nothing makes sense. It all sounds really horrible, but there's a part in all of this where you hide a cracker and then everybody has to go look for it. We put it in a pretty obvious place, but everybody overthought it. Our carpet got ripped up.
How many kids were there? Because only the kids are supposed to look.
Yeah, 3. I just found out totally separately because this is weird. So yeah, basically like it's a break. It's a long service. So like kids go out, they look for it, they come back. But my husband's family, I found out, did it in this really messed up way. Their tradition was that the kids hide it and the adults have to go find it. And in order to restart the service, they have to barter and the kids have to get from the adults
some kind
of award. Yeah, really messed up. Messed up.
So it's long. The service is long enough. The Haggadah that you do is long enough. Most people, that's their biggest complaint about Passover. Yeah. I don't think you should make it longer.
No, and the kids know that, so they're like, "You want to wrap this up? You got to give me something." Yeah.
Let me see if I can find this part of the Red Sea shanty that describes the afikomen.
Oh my God, for real? I did not see this.
What shall we do with the middle matzah early in the Seder? Hide it away, it's the afikomen. Hide it away, it's the afikomen. Hide it away, it's the afikomen early in the Seder.
This is Israeli a cappella singing group called 613. They do every Jewish holiday. They do a weird song. This is their Red Sea shanty.
That's pretty hilarious. I'll have to take a look at that.
That's how I've learned everything I know about Passovers from these guys. And also want to welcome Kevin Rose back. He's the original Twit, by the way. You were on Twit episode 0, Twit episode 1, and I don't know, maybe the first 100 Twits. It's great to see you, Kevin.
Good to see you, Leo. Thanks for having me.
Venture capitalist with True Ventures. He's got a brand new podcast. I want to give you a plug right up front. MoFi, the Modern Finance Podcast. You've only done 3 episodes, only 2 published so far, but the first one is a must listen. I listened to it immediately because I am completely baffled by this whole crazy NFT thing. We've spent a lot of time talking about the Beeple's $69 million art JPEG sold at Christie's. But you explain it all very well with I am DC investor Aftab Hossein, who is and you. I guess you're also an investor. You've bought some NFTs.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely dabbling way back when CryptoPunks first came out, which was that was before the standard was actually defined. So 3 years ago. They
weren't actually NFTs at first, were they?
That's right. Yeah, the standard was based on the work done with the CryptoPunks project.
Oh, interesting. So you're smart. I heard you say that you sold. These are the CryptoPunks.
They're just basically 25 by 25 pixels.
Yeah, they're icons of zombies, right? And other things.
Zombie is one attribute type. Yes.
And
there's aliens, zombies, and they all have different mohawks and glasses and beard types, and I mean.
But you buy these, which I don't understand because I see them all right here. I have them all. You buy them so that if I click on the smiling zombie, which apparently you own, I can look at it. I could print it. I could do anything I want with it. But you own it.
That's right. Yeah, you could do the same thing with get a high-res copy of the Mona Lisa and print it out and hang it up in your house, but you don't have it.
That's true. So it's like you got the Mona Lisa of smiling zombies. Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just a way to use the blockchain to prove that someone actually has ownership over something.
That makes a lot of sense.
And ownership by cementing it in the blockchain.
That's a real problem with artworks, with baseball cards, with any collectible, is attribution and who owns it, but also is it real? Is it and so blockchain kind of solves that.
And the third piece that's really important is how many were made. I mean, one of the things that happened in the 90s around baseball cards and collectibles and comic books is there's a great story. We all, of course, know the very famous franchise of the Wolverine, and the very first Wolverine comic is still $150. And I dug into this. I'm like, how this was made in the 80s? How can this possibly be? And it turns out they printed something like 300,000 of them and didn't tell anyone. They sold as many as they could. And which makes sense as a business, but as collectors, you didn't know that, and so the blockchain gives you a way to say proven scarcity, proven ownership. So that's nice.
So there is another way, a biological way to barcode and to track authenticity, and that's DNA. So you can spray custom DNA on just about anything. It's odorless, it's colorless, it leaves no residue, it leaves no mark. And then you have physical. So blockchain is great, but
it's not physical.
Physical way.
In fact,
I mean, you can.
The CryptoPunk is not in the blockchain, right? The image itself is not in the blockchain, Kevin. Just the URL.
Well, right. That's not true because with CryptoPunks it was only a 25 by 25.
Oh, they're so small you could put
a hash of the.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. In any modern the Beeples, all that stuff, it is just a pointer to an IPFS type, asset.
Right. Well, at least it's IPFS.
And there are problems.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think all of that works well as long as you have a ton of redundancy built in. But
yeah, because if it's just
one of the cool
if it were a web URL, it could the server could go down. At least with IPFS, it's a distributed file system, and so in theory, it's not going to go away.
You could spray DNA fragments.
So I'm not going to ask you. It's not the traditional method of spraying DNA. I'm assuming it's some other high-tech
that's
method.
Not what I was talking about.
Okay, that's where my mind went. It's a sneeze, right? You sneeze on it. I'm sure if you think about it, that probably a few Van Goghs have his DNA on them, but you're not talking about that.
No, I'm not talking about that. One of the really cool things that's happened, one of the positive after effects of the virus is that messenger RNA, which has been around forever, it finally found a use case, a business case.
To make the vaccines in this case.
That's right. And mRNA is a pretty cool technology that has some knock-on effects, and one of which is looking at RNA and DNA in sort of a new light. So DNA is like nature's hard drive. You can store a ton of stuff in it, and it doesn't go anywhere. And likewise, you can use DNA as a tracking system. So if you've got a really valuable collection of comic books, not Wolverine, but something else more valuable, one way to physically mark products like that, artifacts that you can authenticate in the future is using DNA fragments. One
of the advantages of blockchain in this regard is it's distributed and everybody has a copy. There's no, with DNA, you'd still have to have some registry somewhere of what's in that RNA. It doesn't have to be RNA. It could be any encoding method for encoding a long digit string, right. It's like you can encode spores too. It's like a barcode. Yes, you would still need a registry that should be distributed.
That works great for like individual objects, but if you're going to do something like say fractional ownership of a digital object,
you can't do that.
Wouldn't be possible. Smart contracts enable things like artworks to change over time based on rule sets, like really kind of fun things like that as well are pretty cool with some of the NFT stuff.
I think people, and I include myself in this, get distracted by trying to wrap their mind around, well, people made a JPEG, which is infinitely reproducible, and then was able to sell it for $69.3 million to somebody who now can claim ownership in some abstract way. And we get wrapped around this notion of collectibles, physical versus virtual objects and all of that. And, you can go either way on that. I'm kind of the opinion it's pretty speculative, but so are collectibles. You don't buy a Honus Wagner baseball card because it has any intrinsic value. You buy it because you think either you're really a big fan of the Pittsburgh Pirates or you think it's going to have more value down the road and you can sell it. It's a way of storing value, just like, unfortunately, a lot of artworks now are ways of storing value. They're not hung on any wall. They're stored in a locker at some airport to avoid customs and taxes. But they're a store of value, and you'll be able to sell them at some point, probably for more than you paid for it.
Right.
So I acknowledge that this is a good way blockchain is a better way to store value. But I think people like me get all tied in a knot over this. Well, what are you kids doing? This is silly. There's also, and let me ask you about this, Kevin, because you didn't address this in Modern Finance. There's also an environmental concern, isn't there? There's a lot of energy being used to create these things, and every transaction uses a lot of energy.
I think the energy consumption of proof of work blockchain has been known for quite some time. It's horrible. And so, that's why there's a lot of work and effort going into making these chains just eco-friendly. If you take a look at all of the layer 2 scaling solutions for Ethereum, everything they're doing with optimistic rollups, these are like very lightweight ways to do cryptographically proven transfers without having to write it back to the main chain. So without spending a lot of resource power until we get to something that is proof of stake, which is not proof of work, which is not using very intensive CPU or GPUs to do all of these transaction processing, which is on the Ethereum roadmap. This stuff is coming.
It's been on the roadmap for a long time, though, Kevin.
Yeah, I know. But you're also talking about, how many billions of dollars you got to be very careful when you're changing directions of a plane of that size, right? Like if you're setting a new destination, like you want to really battle and harden the code. And so, there's been some ETH2 is like they've crossed a couple of major milestones, and staking is the next big one.
And that will eliminate the grotesque energy expenditure.
Yes, yeah. and there's already other chains out there that like are getting a lot of traction that are already green from the get-go. Chia, Bram Cohen, the creator of BitTorrent, just launched his coin here just 4 or 5 days ago.
You actually interview him for the
very efficient green
for the podcast. You just interviewed him for the podcast.
Yeah. It's a very efficient, super green cryptocurrency. It's going to have support for smart contracts and other things on top of it. Solana, super, like talk about high bandwidth, high throughput. They can do 50,000 transactions a second, and it is super efficient and green. So, these are all problems that are being worked out. But I certainly acknowledge that today it sucks. Of course, like dependent upon where you're getting your energy from. Like there are a lot of miners that will go next to very cheap sources, which can be hydroelectric. They can be, solar.
Can be renewables.
They're mining in those environments.
Sure. In fact, it only makes sense to mine where electricity is cheap, because otherwise you're probably not making a profit.
Right.
It kind of brings up the issue of, I saw some wag tweet. Elon Musk said Tesla now will accept Bitcoin to purchase a Tesla automobile. And of course, some wag pointed out that you might as well just put gas engines in them, Elon, because all the benefit, the environmental benefit of an electric vehicle is kind of abrogated by using Bitcoin to pay for them.
Yes and no. I think that there's a couple things here. Like, what are the payment rails behind the scenes? If you're going, let's say, I don't know what they're using for on the merchant side to accept Bitcoin, but let's just say it's Coinbase, right?
Yeah.
If you're going Coinbase to Coinbase, you're not doing anything.
There's no
you're
conversion.
Not even actually writing to the chain, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just staying within that family. So it depends.
And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and somebody pointed out that. There's not inconsiderable energy usage in banking as well. I mean, we use a lot of energy for a lot of things, including Google searches, and we don't pay much attention to that, and that we got to pay attention to it all soon.
Yeah,
because it's not sustainable in the long run. All right. Oh, hey, okay. As long as we're talking about this, one more question for you, because we're talking about Bitcoin purchases of Teslas on the radio show with Sam Abul Samad, our car guy, and he said, people should consider the tax consequences if the Bitcoin gets converted into dollars. The IRS is going to want capital gains tax on the difference between the basis and what that Bitcoin was worth when you converted it. Is that right?
That's right.
They pay attention to that.
They're going to be short or long-term cap gains depending on how long you've held it for.
Right. So only spend your first Bitcoin, not your last.
Right. First in, first out.
Is that possible? I guess it is.
Yeah, that's how the accounting software does that. You tie in it's crazy.
Do you cover this in your new report on trends? This has to be part of the way the world is changing. Yeah.
So we produce, the Future Today Institute has for 14 years put out an annual tech trends report. They're longitudinal and quantitative. So these tend not to be flashes in the pan, which is why we really wrestled with what to do this year around NFTs. Because
it's hard to know.
My team and I differ a little bit. I think the NFT is the modality of something different. I don't think that's the thing. I think the thing is about how value is held digitally, and this is just the current modality. But yeah, so there were so many aftershocks because of COVID that we wound up with 22% more, 22% increase in the number of trends that we cover.
Holy cow!
So we crossed the 500 mark this year in trends, and so we broke them up and wrote 12 separate reports. So there is an entire report just on cryptos and blockchains and DLTs.
A fintech report. Yep. I'm looking at it right now. And there, by the way, nice little sketch of you, Amy.
Thanks. We have we work with a really amazing, talented artist who's a futurist named Julia Durgi, and she did the hand-drawn illustrations in our creative director.
I should have brought the calendar you guys sent out in, because it's really wonderful. Each month is a different illustrator and a different concept, and it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. I understand this so poorly that I don't even know what questions to ask. So maybe we'll just move on. Because
Well, here, can I add one thing?
NFTs are a current manifestation, but you say it's a manifestation of something deeper.
I do. And let's also, so CryptoKitties was what, 2017? Right on my years.
CryptoKitties. Yeah, I remember them. They're still around, by the way. You can still buy a CryptoKitty.
Sure. Yep. But my point is, and then, it's good to remember it's good to think about the factors that are contributing to excitement when it bursts like it is right now in the space. So part of it is people are trapped inside, and
it's perfect for quarantine. Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is this is not the first time we've seen this. This is at least the second. And so as far as the work that we do, we're usually not looking at the very first thing. We're looking at the offshoots of that first thing. And then what is the thing? So the conversation about NFTs and Ethereum are related, and not trying to buy a Tesla with a Bitcoin. They're all related, and all of these things have to do with how we create and store value in a way that in a way that makes sense over a long period of time. And so that's what's happening. So right now, everybody's pretty excited about digital art, and that may shift to something else, and it may shift to something else. But ultimately, the underlying current here is how value gets exchanged using new tech.
Eventually, I would imagine blockchain or something like it will replace centralized ledger systems.
I guess I was at WEF, 2018, or maybe it was 2017. I forget the year. Cryptos tied to fiat currency, tied to national initiatives was being talked about a lot. China was talking about throwing some of its sovereign wealth fund at its own version of a national crypto. So, and Singapore's had some sort of nation state experiments already. So I think that this is just like many things, right? This is a change, a fundamental change that'll just sort of take some time to sort out.
Yeah, we've already seen national banks in many countries, including our own, say, stable coin, because we don't want the volatility, but stable coin is going to be okay for something. I don't. Will we ever have a crypto-based currency in a national currency? Is that going to happen?
I lived in China I lived in Hong Kong when there were two currencies. There were two different banknotes issued. One was HSBC and the other one was the I forget the other one, Bank of China. And it was kind of a pain in the neck. So I don't know that I want lots of different currency types.
Yeah, one's enough. One's sufficient.
But the question is, Kevin kind of brought this up a moment ago, but like, what would it take for something like that to work? And the back end processing that you would need, think of how long it took the United States just to get to contactless payment.
Right.
And we're still not.
And we're still not there.
Here's a crazy statistic. I was just talking to somebody who's a banking executive, and fewer than 10%. It's single digits. It's a very, very low number of the people in the United States who use Apple Pay, even though the penetration rate of iPhones is quite high. So we're not there.
It's hard for those of us in the bubble, and probably all three of us are in the bubble, and certainly most of our listeners, to understand that, because I use Apple Pay for every moment I can, online and in real world stores. But it just seems so obvious and convenient.
I mean, we will have to have a national digital currency. Like, there's no doubt. I mean, that's the future.
Why?
Well, you're just going to keep paper forever. Like, it's just not going to. It's already happened, in that we have a stable coin that represents the dollar, and that works. Is it expensive on Ethereum? Yes. Is it expensive on Solana? No. And it's the same stable coin. It's backed by Coinbase. They're doing all the bookkeeping for that. But I would imagine the U.S. government has to eventually issue a national digital currency. I mean, China is working on it. They're going to do it. And then also, I mean, what better way to attack the value of the dollar than for Russia and China and other countries to buy up Bitcoin? I mean, and try and create a global standard that is not the dollar.
Oh, interesting.
It's it's already happening. Like for the first time in Q4 of last year, we saw more institutional money going into buying Bitcoin than retail for the first time. That's massive. And you think Tesla is going to stop? And of course not. It's going to, or do you think Tesla's going to be the only one and Square? It's going to be Google buying it, Amazon buying it, like more and more institutions, wealthy family offices, like hedge funds, they're all going to be buying up this crypto. And I don't know. I just have a feeling governments are not far behind, and when that happens, it's game on. Like that's war against the dollar, which is going to get really crazy.
Is it politically difficult too? Because there are certain look. There are a lot of people out there who think the vaccine is going to insert a chip in your arm that Bill Gates is going to use to follow you around. There's clearly a lot of people, especially in the United States, who are very skeptical of anything that's not printed on paper, right? And I think the notion of cash and the anonymity of the true anonymity of cash and all that drives a lot of people. I think politically it might be difficult to persuade people to give up cash.
It's not that you would have to give it up. It would just be it's almost as it is today.
Slow, yeah.
Like you're not,
yeah.
When
there's no money in the bank. I don't have any money in the bank. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I don't know. It's bits. It's bits in the bank.
It's bits already.
Well,
nobody wants to think about that, by the way. That's a terrifying thought.
There's the currency, and then there's the transaction, and then there's the FIs supporting all of it. So, on the one hand, so Kevin's absolutely right. There are actually quite a few countries that are already pushing much further ahead than we are on national crypto of some kind. You know, a lot of this just goes back to belief.
It's all fiat. That's what fiat means. It's Latin for belief.
Right.
And
so,
yeah.
But I was going to say on the flip side of this. So in New York, I don't know, like 2 years ago, a lot of places stopped taking cash, and now they all have to take cash again. So,
why do they have to take cash again?
Because it turns out a lot of people are unbanked or underbanked, and they don't have a way to digitally. Well,
that's
transact.
Another issue. Yeah.
Right.
Is
that is being fixed so fast. Like, look at what Square has done there. I mean, they are just crushing it.
Yeah, but what if you don't even have a smartphone? What do you? I mean,
you know the prices of smartphones and everything. I mean, it's just coming down to next to nothing. If to get an Android phone,
actually, there's the data show that there's not a very high correlation between your socioeconomic income level and your smartphone adoption. Oh. Meaning people who are on the very low end still have smartphones.
Just that it's not
a necessary.
About money. Yeah.
Right.
But there are people who will be left out by a digital transformation, aren't there? I don't know who those would be, but the data on that skew more toward people who just don't have the digital literacy. So if anything, like that's people
like the thing that's holding back cryptos right now is that people don't quite grok cryptos, right? They don't understand how to get them or use them.
So if somebody's listening to this and poo-pooing it and saying, it probably behooves you to figure it out now. Yeah, start to think about it. You think?
Well, I mean, the whole thing, Amy, you're right. There's a lot of people that don't grok it. And I think those are the rough edges that are being sanded out over the last, couple of years. I mean, the fact that you can go with everybody, people that have a PayPal account have no idea what crypto is.
Right.
They can just go in there and with 2 clicks own cryptocurrency like that. That is amazing. Like from where we were a few years ago in the world of crypto, it was so hard to set up your own wallet and everything else you had to do to get crypto.
Right.
I mean, in Square Cash, they do these, Square has just been so brilliant here where they do these little, these bonuses where they'll say, you can go and we'll send you a debit card. So you get a Visa debit card for your Square account. So you still don't have a bank account, but someone sent you some Square Cash, you were babysitting, whatever it may be. You enable one of these little boosts they call them, and they'll say 10%, or actually they have one 15% Bitcoin back on your coffee shop purchase. So you go use your Visa card, and then all of a sudden, for the first time, you're like, wait a second, I own Bitcoin now? And you click on the tab for the first time and you realize you don't have to have $55,000 to buy Bitcoin. You can buy Bitcoin for $2 or $5, and they just make it super simple. And the on-ramps are getting that much easier for the average consumer.
Right. And it's the use cases. It's the use case on the spending side that still needs to be worked out. And I think part of the problem with people not paying contactless has less to do with the individual consumer and more to do with merchant services and the terminals. It's taken a really, really long time for merchants to switch over their POS terminals. That's a big part of the problem. So like, it's fine. I mean, I've got a bunch of different. I'm holding a bunch of different options, right? And I can't do anything, not really, with any of it. One of my friends, who's probably listening at some point this week, who had set up a mining operation and built. He mined enough that I think he bought most of a car with it, but it required like multiple transactions to get to the point where he could complete that purchase. So
that's getting easier, though. That's Kevin's point. Is the infrastructure?
I don't. So from that's one place where I kind of like disagree. I don't know that it is getting easier relative to what. In order for it to move from fringe to mainstream, it has to be you have to hit critical mass and.
I think there's also a psychological hurdle that might even be more intractable. But maybe that's because I'm older than you guys. But I think that, there's also a psychological hurdle to self-driving cars. I don't want to get in that thing. There's no driver. There's no steering wheel. There's this psychological hurdle that, well, who owns this? Where does it exist? And how do I know I'm not getting ripped off?
Yeah, but nobody understands the Fed. I mean, like that's fine until
but
you
we
stop
all
and
do
try
it.
to have,
we all do it. So we assume somebody must understand it because we all.
It's time.
It's time. It's amount of time with an idea. Because if you stop and ask, how does the Fed work? Yeah. How does like macroeconomics work? No. It doesn't. Your brain will hurt, right?
People have a rough idea. They say, well, they print money. It's slightly inflationary. I mean, people have people don't understand economics. They have a very rough idea. But there is a sense of security because it's the way we do it. Everybody does it. So you're saying in time, it'll be the way we do things, and everybody will go, oh, yeah, fine, that's fine. That's BTC.
Yeah, I calculated by Thanksgiving dinners. Like 3 Thanksgiving dinners ago, like 3 people were asking me how they can buy Bitcoin. Now at Thanksgiving dinner, everyone's talking about what's the price going to go to. And everybody already has it.
I feel like that's driven by speculation. That's driven fundamentally by greed. Like, how do I get in on this so I could be another Bitcoin billionaire? It's driven by speculation. That worries me a little bit.
Yeah. So does the stock market. It's all.
Oh yeah, it worries me also. And by the way,
I just consider it another asset class. I think it's silly to think that this is going away. And so for me, it's like, what percentage of my overall portfolio does this make up?
Do you diversify into cyberpunks, CryptoPunks?
That's right.
Yeah,
and you actually
can
do
sneakers,
that.
Sneakers.
I was going to say, like, sneakers are asset classes too. I mean, it's what we ascribe value to.
I know. I was talking to Christina Warren about her crazy sneaker thing, and she does that whole thing online where they bid and all. And it's like, I finally feel like my grandfather, going, I don't get what you kids are up to.
Is she buying to wear or to resell?
I think she's actually just buying to wear. Somebody, by the way, has to buy to use as opposed to buy to speculate, or it just does become completely untethered to reality. At some point, everything has to have some utility. There's no point in having. Then it's just.
But that's the thing with art, right? You don't. I mean, the painting I've got hanging up over there doesn't have utility. There's utility.
But you at least can look at it.
Yeah.
And I agree. You can have a perfect copy of the Mona Lisa on your wall, indistinguishable from the original. It'd be a lot easier to see it than going to Paris and waiting in line at the Louvre.
Yeah, and looking at it from what do they make you stand back like 50 feet now through double bulletproof glass?
Yeah. I like to stand there and just watch everybody go, it's so small.
Right.
So you can print it big. You can make it big. And then it'll make you happy. I don't know. I feel like this is one of those wild things where
right. So this is as a futurist, right? This is a moment when Leo, what you're describing right now is what we would call a strong signal. So there's enough of a change. It's happened pretty quickly that the best possible thing to do is to stop and ask a whole bunch of questions. What is this thing? How is this thing having next order impacts already? How does this thing change the value network of, whatever it might be? How does this thing impact my business, my portfolio, my perception, whatever, Yeah. You got to stop and ask a whole bunch of questions. And I think the issue is that there's a certain amount of knowledge being accumulated by one end of the spectrum of people, and everybody else tuning in like on the morning talk shows because it's sensationalist sounding. Everybody else tuning out. So what you wind up with on the other side of this is a fairly wide gap in knowledge, which is not good either, because now you've got two deficiencies. Not only do you not hold cryptos, but now you also don't. You're that much further away from understanding.
Yep.
Yeah.
As soon as the AARP explains it, then I'll know. We're going to take a little break. I am so glad you guys are here because it's always an education for me, and I hope for all of you as well. Amy Webb from the Future Today Institute. Kevin Rose from True Ventures and his new podcast, Modern Finance. I thought I understood all this. I listened to episode 1. I thought it all made sense, and now I'm confused again. I'll have to listen to another episode. Our show today, thank you both for being here. Our show today brought to you by, here's something I understand, foreign languages. Speaking another tongue, it's good for your brain. It's good for you. It's great if you like to travel, but chances are there are people around you who speak another language you'd like to be able to communicate to, and I got to recommend Babel, which is the absolute best way to learn a language. I did Babel for French, and I'm doing Babel for Spanish. It's really useful in California to be able to speak Spanish. It's the #1 selling language learning app, and I can tell you exactly why. It makes the process easy and fun. 15-minute lessons. I do one every night before I go to bed, so I'll remember it. I do the review the next morning to make it sink in. It is fantastic. And unlike the language classes you took in high school, Babel designs their courses with, you're never in French going to say, my aunt's pen. But everybody, for some reason in high school, learns la plume de ma tante. Not in Babel. You learn practical, real-world phrases you'll use in everyday life. Beginners start with typical greetings like, hello, how are you? And build up to practical dialogues like, how can I book a single room? There's listening, there's speaking, there's flashcards, there's writing. Here, let's listen to a phrase because, let's see. Let me turn up the sound here. I always turn off my phone so I can do the show, but I want you to hear this. Asia. Say it again. Asia. Oh, boy. That's Spanish. They have, by the way, Mexican Spanish and Spanish. Asia. Okay, I got it right. Whoop, say it again. Yo. That's I. Got that one right. It's fun. It's actually, they gamify language learning. They've designed these with real language experts, unlike other language learning apps which use AI for their lessons plans. Babel was created by over 100 language experts. Their teaching methods scientifically proven to be effective. You can choose from 14 different languages. I mentioned Spanish and French. There's also Italian and German, many more. Gracias. Plus, Babel's speech recognition technology helps you improve your pronunciation and accent. And then one of the things I really love they've added on Babel is you can actually join group conversations with native speakers and other learners. That's the absolute best way to get fluent in a language. I love Babel. Real world, but real effective. Start your new language learning journey today with Babel, Babbel. Right now, when you purchase a 3-month Babel subscription, you'll get an additional 3 months for free. 6 months for the price of 3. And believe me, in 6 months, you'll be babbling along in whatever language you choose. It's amazing. Go to Babel.com. Use the promo code TWIT, Babbel.com. Promo code TWIT for 3 extra months free. Babel is language for life. Kevin Rose is here. I got 2 of the smartest people in the world. I got to use them in a good way. Let's see. I'm going to ask all the hard questions. Should Microsoft buy Discord for $10 billion, and why would they?
Absolutely. 100%.
Are you a Discord user?
Oh, I'm a huge fan. I'm on there all the time. This is where every single cryptocurrency project calls their home. Like they use Discord servers.
Every open source project too.
Yeah, exactly. Open source projects. It's really gaining a ton of momentum, and how you can extend it in very unique ways with their API There's just some really cool stuff going on there. It's I'm a huge fan. At first I thought it was just going to be all gaming.
It started that way.
It started that way,
yeah.
but it's extended much further than that now. So I think it's a great pickup for them. I don't think they'll get it for 10 billion, but I think it's a
no.
great
In fact,
pickup.
I think what happened, I'm just guessing. You might know better because you know how these things work. Is that Discord is considering an IPO, but they thought, well, let's float a dollar amount and see if we can get anybody to buy us. And then if not, well, we'll do the IPO and we'll make that much money anyway. It's interesting, though, the reason Microsoft is in the hunt, and apparently the conversations aren't currently ongoing, but the reason Microsoft's in the hunt is very interesting. Satya Nadella last month in an interview said that the future was going to be all about creation. He said the past technology has been about consumption, watching Netflix on your iPad, for instance, but that the future lies in creation, which is why Microsoft tried to buy TikTok, which is why Microsoft tried to buy Pinterest, and why Microsoft is now trying to buy Discord. I guess that makes sense. It wouldn't be the most expensive thing they've bought, but one of the most it would be right up there. I think it'd be the number 2 biggest acquisition, much more than they spent for Nokia or GitHub. Maybe even like LinkedIn would be the only thing that was bigger, I think. Amy,
I think
is the future in chat? Is that
so? Couple things. First of all, according to Microsoft 2 years ago, the future was AI. So the future changes.
Yeah, of course it does. Constantly.
But if you look at this possible acquisition as part of a broader constellation, here's where I think it gets interesting. So Microsoft is already the invisible infrastructure powering much of our everyday lives.
Their network
right?
service, yeah.
It's Azure. It's the back end of Crestron. Yeah, I mean, we don't think about it, but
it's not as big as AWS, but it's probably number 2.
Well, but
right?
it's not just cloud. It's core infrastructure and so many. It's a lot, right? If Facebook goes away tomorrow, you have a lot of small business collapse. You've got part of a social ecosystem collapse, but the world doesn't stop functioning. If Microsoft had some kind of catastrophic issue and poofed off the face of the planet, we don't. Much of business operations, critical infrastructure no longer works without Microsoft. So what I think is very interesting is that, it's got Git. It's Discord is. I'm on Discord for other reasons, but so you've got Discord. Microsoft is also built.
Let me ask you, actually,
Keybase?
parenthetically, you used to use Keybase for a secure chat with other parents and friends.
Yeah.
You use Discord now for that?
I started on Discord because of DEF CON. So that's why
where you could follow the DEF CON.
Yeah,
conference.
I just it's not my favorite platform, but I'm on it.
Keybase got sold to Zoom. Are you still using Keybase?
Yeah.
They didn't change. They're still around.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're spending any energy on it.
But in terms of content creation, I don't think that's the story. I think that's the story related to this particular set of purchases. Azure has a farm, so they're building out cloud for precision agriculture out in the field.
Yeah, that's
right.
A wild business.
In order to automate farming, which it gets no pickup or coverage, they've also built. It was Microsoft that's trying to figure out how to use DNA to store unimaginable amounts of data. So I think if you look at this constellation of things, which at first seem very unrelated, the story possibly into the future is that Microsoft is trying to figure out how to be the sort of next infrastructure layer.
Yeah.
Which is a smart move.
Yeah, that's
Very
what
smart.
xCloud is about. Their streaming gaming service is
and there's
about,
a lot of growth.
Is about that as much
those
as it is
areas.
about gaming.
So I don't think this is like, and I don't think Microsoft. I think TikTok is a something totally separate. But
I always assumed they would want something like TikTok for the data, for the just like LinkedIn and
I think that's part of it, but Microsoft also has effectively its own corporate foreign service department, its own sort of Department of State within the company. In fact, it poached a lot of people from the State Department. So I think Microsoft is playing a slightly bigger different game, and TikTok would have been a pretty nice bargaining chip to have had.
Kevin, the chat room, and I think a lot of our audience says they prefer Matrix and Element, which is an open source chat platform instead. What is Discord's closed source advantage over Matrix, for instance?
I haven't used a lot of the others. I basically go where the projects are, like where the founders are creating these new communities, and then Discord is just pretty much the standard, at least in the cryptocurrency space, which is where I spend probably 80% of my time evaluating new deals. And so it's I can't compare it to the others, but I will say some of the mechanics around what they've done with it in terms of the moderation and the bot integrations. I'll give you one really wild example. There was a Discord that to join, someone created an ERC20 token on Ethereum, and you had to own one of these tokens. And so if you owned one of these tokens and it was in your wallet, you could join, but the bot would then go and look at your wallet on the blockchain, confirm that you own the token to let you into the actual
that's clever.
Chat group.
That's better than
so
a
if you ever
password.
sold your token, but you could sell your token to someone else and they go up in value. So if the group's becoming more valuable, it's crazy. So some of the stuff I just see being done there is super creative.
Somebody in the chat room posted an article about Azure, saying that one of the reasons tech pundits have a hard time understanding all of the fingers and all the pies that Microsoft has is because it isn't the same as AWS. Is that, Amy? Is that what you're saying? It's more than just cloud.
Yeah. Again, Microsoft, I know, is not the world's sexiest company. However,
it's getting sexier. It's getting sexier. It is. It is.
It's got DNA.
It's got DNA. All over it.
Yeah. So I think part of it is, I don't know. That's an apt comparison because AWS is its own unruly, enormous thing too, and Amazon in many ways is just as decentralized in terms of all the work it's doing. But Azure, there is something called farm beats. So this is something they are specifically building for connected farming equipment. To enable a future of precision agriculture, which effectively means you don't have a bunch of farm hands and all the traditional people that you would need. You've got engineered crops that produce 10x the yield and require a fraction of the resources. That maybe your two farmers are sitting in Bangladesh.
It's kind of basically an investment in what they see as what is going to be the next big thing. Is farming.
Right. And if you think about the next big things in terms of not opportunity, but risk, I think that's where some of this becomes more clear. We know that we've got extreme climate change and extreme weather events. We know that we have food insecurity. The global supply of food is at risk right now. So if you're thinking about your markets, 10, 15 years into the future, some of this starts to make more sense.
It's crazy how I feel like as an engineer, I see entrepreneurs that say, well, I choose the solution based on what I'm building, right? Like if you're going for some of the ML models that Google offers, with their custom silicon, or you want to even go with AWS, they're doing their own custom chips that are super efficient, low power, cheaper than,
for machine learning
chips.
Yeah.
So it's you kind of have to look and say, what am I building and who has the best solution for that?
Right. It also might
they're all
explain,
a little different.
We talked about this a month ago, why Bill Gates is the #1 farmland owner in America. Did you know that, Amy? He owns 242,000 acres of farmland. It's a good investment.
Yes and no. I think a lot of the future farming will be indoors and underground. So they're huge indoor plant factories. Again, once
salt mines full of vertical farming.
Yeah, and just we're pretty close to being able to engineer. We can already use synthetic biology to engineer crops in new ways, and we have many more people on the planet. We have the conditions used to determine how to grow things are less and less stable, meaning we have worse weather. A fifth of all garments that are made of cotton are, I think I've got this wrong. A fifth of all 1 out of 5 garments basically relies on cotton from China, which is my way of saying you've got geopolitical instability
huge
and
issue.
Global supply chains. Yeah. So all of this starts to make a little bit more sense if what you're aiming for is easier geopolitics and better sustainability and better certainty in conditions. Then yeah, you want to, instead of like sourcing your cotton from Western China and then maybe it gets stuck on a barge in the Panama Canal, instead you grow these things underground or in warehouses, and you reduce a lot of that uncertainty.
By the way, let's just quickly check, because we're keeping an eye on that ship in the Suez Canal. Is the ship still stuck.com? Yes. Cost us so far $53 billion in shipping that's stalled behind the
There's
Evergiven.
Autonomous. So that's a problem so there's a bunch of companies. IBM is one of them that is working on full autopilot shipping capabilities. I don't know if it would have helped in that situation, but
here's as long as we're doing the Evergiven story, here's a website John found for me, evergiven-everywhere.glitch.me. You can take the Evergiven and put it anywhere you want, blocking any harbor you want. You can rotate it, make the boat bigger, make it smaller, and you can just fit it right in. There's the New York harbor. Will just block up Manhattan right there with the Evergiven. And actually, if I make it to scale, it's a lot smaller. So we're going to have to find a special right there. Just put it right there. That'll
have it block the Lincoln Tunnel. That'll make everything much better.
That is a wild story, I have to say. Okay, let's move along. We just talked about Microsoft buying Discord. And we mentioned Amazon. I guess we could. So this is one of the problems I'm starting to face in the stuff we've covered. This has changed a lot, Kevin, since used to be on Twit. Used to be about computers, smartphones, technology. The technology story has really broadened. For instance, now we know the documents show Amazon is aware that drivers pee in bottles and even defecate en route. Is that a tech story? I don't think so.
That may not be, but the pacing robots that they filed a patent on, which I've got on my desktop, I'll try to find it. They've been working on haptic wristbands and pacing robots for warehouses to help the human workers move faster.
Pacing, that's a nice way to put it. Does it have a cattle prod attached to it? How does it keep the humans working faster?
No, because it slowly, or I guess quickly, speeds itself up if people aren't moving.
Oh
around
my
as
God! You mean, is it like a conveyor,
be.
or is it the pickers robots?
It's for the pickers. But what's the bigger story here? What's the more interesting piece? The more interesting piece is that I think the assumption is that it's robots that ultimately obviate humans in these environments.
They're going to drive humans.
Well,
like mules.
Right. It's the robots. It's the computer systems, which is why this is a computer story. The computer systems that are making the cognitive decisions. And at the moment, human labor is cheaper, easier, and it's the humans acting like robots.
And it's infinitely replaceable. Humans are fungible. And so you wear one out, you just go out and get another one, apparently. It's actually, there's a tie-in story to that because Amazon is also requiring its drivers to sign agreements to allow themselves to be monitored by cameras to make sure they're paying attention, which I think is probably a reasonable safety precaution. But that's that same idea, that same mindset of, you just plug in the humans, but we'll have the machines keep track of everything they're doing to make sure they're doing a good job. Is it just a stopgap? Eventually, the robots will become good enough we don't need the humans anymore. That was Uber's model, right? Get rid of the drivers.
So again,
eventually.
What would it take for a machine to totally obviate a human? And not only does it require technical competence, but you have to have analog fallbacks and fail safes. And then you've got regulatory hurdles and you've got actuarial problems because everything has to get insured. So,
Sounds like maybe we should stick with the humans. Just let the robots
I think that's what
prod them along.
A lot of people,
it's
but
cheaper.
But at some point, yes. And at some point, if we have a machine doing something more efficiently, better, more repetitively, right, over and over and over again, that, you know, that makes our lives better, then we use a calculator, right? We no longer do long division by hand.
Right. It's an interesting world we live in, if nothing else. So those are the tech stories, because that really is how tech is changing the world we live in. I think those are much more interesting. At least they're more in our wheelhouse, so to speak. In other words, there's a lot of Amazon union stories. Tesla's in trouble for the same kind of anti-labor practices. It's not a tech story. I'm going to leave those out. That's a union story. But the larger story is that these companies don't think of workers as people. They're more cogs in a machine, and they just happen to be very nicely tuned. They have fingers, and
Well, there is a tech story. So that because over I guess it was Friday, 3 unions at Condé Nast voted 98% to go on strike. So that was Ars, Pitchfork, and the New Yorker, I think.
Ars is going on strike.
Yeah.
Wow. New Yorker is going on strike. Wow.
On Friday. So, but the tech story is related to the GameStop trading that happened. And that is, you know, we organize in new ways now. We've got totally different ways of sharing ideas and information. We've got people who have been playing multiplayer games now for a decade and know how to organize for tactical attacks.
Yeah.
So I would say all of these things are related to how we organize online, which is fundamentally different than how we were doing that 10 years ago. Well,
and social media has really given us a very effective tool for online organizing. I mean, if it weren't for Reddit, I don't think, GameStop would have taken off. It was because Reddit existed that these people could gather together and plan their assault. Twitter and Facebook as well. I would think.
Well, also the tools on the Robinhood side, right? Because before
that's the other side too. Yes.
Remember, to do options trading used to require like a 5-page questionnaire. You'd have to fill out at your brokerage, and now it's like you can have an instant Robinhood account and do very complex trades that the average consumer should not be touching with a couple little clicks.
It's very easy to do options, much easier than it used to be. Yeah. I think the brokerage was trying to protect you, right? To make sure that you understood the risk you were involved in. Do you think Robinhood's culpable for making it easy? There are a number of people who think Robinhood made it too easy.
It's tough. It's tough because in some sense you want people to have access to some of these tools.
Why should only rich people be able to use this?
But then should Robinhood be the one? So the interesting thing from my vantage point was that when trading became so volatile and the volume was so high, it wasn't the SEC that stepped in. Robinhood made a decision, and it happened at around the same time that AWS kicked Parler off.
Robinhood was forced to make the decision though, because they would have to have enough cash on hand to back those trades.
They still made a decision. And the difference here is that if you look at some of these things together, normally these are are institutions that would have made those decisions, and instead they're not. So
in fact,
just
it's
as
quite
we've
the
got
opposite.
DDoS.
When the Jobs Act passed, that was one of the things that made it a much lower bar for investors, right? They allowed other people without $1 million in the bank to invest. It changed everything. Is it illegal for Robinhood to make it this easy for option investing, or is it just something the big brokerages?
Well, if it was illegal, they wouldn't have been allowed to do it.
It's legal, right?
So I think to me, what does it mean when a company shuts off access? So one of the things I've noticed is what I would call a CDOS, a corporate denial of service versus a DDoS
I like it.
But we're going to be seeing more of those, I think, because sometimes you build a product, the product is successful, it's a solution, right? But you don't think about the knock-on effects. You don't think about dual use, new ways in which these things could go wrong. And quite frankly, I work with these companies all the time. They don't want to have that conversation. And increasingly, a lot of lawyers and risk officers also don't want to have that conversation because they don't want it on record that they thought about these things that might go wrong, and then somebody could sue them after the fact. But we can't stick our heads in the sand and assume that everything will go well forever. I mean, there's always some kind of problem on the horizon that has to be dealt with.
Kevin, do you feel like Robinhood is a good thing for normal people, or does it make it too easy?
Well, I mean, I think that there's certainly, there's a couple of different things. One, the fractional ownership of very expensive companies, I think, is an important thing for the average consumer to be able to do. It's important that if I don't have enough money to buy a single share of, Berkshire or something, that I can still go and do that in a $5 or $10 way. Right. The options, I feel like there needs to be at least another hurdle of understanding, that before people can get involved there. But that said, it wasn't the options trading that was the problem. It was the coordinated attack. But even then, I don't know that. I don't know if you can really consider that a problem. Like what went wrong? Was there something that really went wrong there? The system functioned as planned. Robinhood
got a little bit of heat, and they apparently had to put off their IPO, but I think that's passed now, right? That I don't know if people blame Robinhood still.
Right, but if you had just left that going and just let that war continue, what would break? I mean, I get that some people
would lose money.
Be left holding.
Yeah,
sure, but would that be the hedge funds? I mean,
well, it's hard to tell, isn't it?
Well,
that's
what about
part
the
of it.
company?
It's very opaque. What about GameStop?
What about the company? Yeah, I mean,
how does this affect them at all?
Well, if you've got people's bonuses tied to people's, salary,
tied to their stock price.
Yeah.
All it allows them to do is raise capital very easily, right? They can just go out and issue new shares and have a lot more capital on the books.
But nobody's going to invest in this company. There's no reason for GameStop to exist.
It's at $181 still. I don't understand it myself. It is,
but if you look at what Sony, I mean, look at what all the other companies are doing. They're all moving to subscription-based models. Yeah. Microsoft, right? So, think about this in the longer term. Is I think the issue.
Well, that's kind of, to me, this is, again, the word speculation comes to mind, that people aren't really worried about GameStop as a company. They're concerned about the stock and whether the stock's going to go up and whether they're going to buy it at a price that allows them to make money when they sell it. That's It'll be interesting
calculus. if the new land grabs over the next couple of years, if these new wars are fought over companies like GameStop versus countries like whoever got invaded recently, if that's it's interesting to think about.
I think we're already seeing that. Look at China and its soft power. We've talked about this before, Amy. China's never going to invade the United States, but they don't necessarily need to or want to.
No, they don't.
They can exert their power economically, really. It's economic power.
They already are.
Yeah.
The GameStop investment thesis is, I agree with you. I mean, if you take a look at earnings and where everything's going,
nothing to do with fundamentals.
Digital, right? Nothing to do with fundamentals. But at the same time, you have a collection of people that said GameStop was part of my childhood. I don't want this to go away.
Interesting.
So I'm going to put money into it. Yeah. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
That's
and
part
that
of its
keeping
value.
The company afloat.
Yeah. Part of the value is the brand value.
Right.
That's another fundamental. Again, this is another.
I'm not buying it.
You're not? No game. You'll buy
but
CryptoPunks, but not GameStop.
CryptoPunks was the very first digital art.
There'll
NFT
never be another one.
Blockchain.
There'll never be another first. That's actually right. Drives a lot of NFTs, doesn't it? The first.
Yeah, so especially on the CryptoPunk side. I mean, they're the ones that define the standard. So, that's why I hold a couple of them. I mean, it's not any crazy amount of my overall net worth, but I have a few of them.
Is it a diversification strategy for you, though? I mean, is it part of your...
Well, if you want to do that, then it gets even crazier, Leo, down the rabbit hole. Here you go.
Okay.
You can basically take and buy in. There's a site called NFTX, which people transfer their CryptoPunks into like a smart contract that then wraps them all together, and you hold a token that holds a diversified pool of underlying CryptoPunks. So you can, so as they appreciate.
So you have CryptoPunk derivatives? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, basically, yeah. It's just
what could possibly
I feel like this is like
wrong?
you have a fractional ownership of like somebody's pile of Beanie Babies.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
Fractional
it's funny you
ownership
mentioned
of
that, Amy.
Beanie
I mean,
Babies.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you've seen this. And so this is the crazy story. Michael Jordan rookie card, the physical rookie card, not some crazy digital thing.
Yeah.
It was $15,000, $20,000 a year ago, and now they're going for $1 million.
Wow.
And part of why that jump happened, people are saying, is because a lot of these fractional ownership sites went online that said, we have a vault, we will store your Michael Jordan rookie card, and you can own a small, a $10 chunk of it, a $50 chunk of it, and all of a sudden, all these people that couldn't afford it,
it
can
increases the
Jordan.
probable pool of money. That's right.
Well, that's exactly what happened with that $69 million Beeple. Was he sold off shares in the, what is it, B plus? He was able to sell off fractional ownership of that. So
interesting.
Yeah, interesting. I think he made money. And isn't that what it's all about?
People's doing all right.
That's an amazing story. That's just a wild story. In some ways, I like it because it is at least rewarding creativity, right? I mean, this guy is very creative. He's an artist. So in some ways, at least the artist is in front. So that's good. I still think a lot of the stuff that's going on is speculative, not a art appreciation.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what's happening with NFTs, and this is the downside or the scary side or the bubble side, which I absolutely believe exists. It's that anyone with Photoshop or whatever the name of the app is that can export your ping can become a creator of NFTs.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have some cream that rises to the surface that is fantastic artists that deserve the recognition and that make good money. And they're going to have a bunch of garbage and just like fad stuff and clones and copycats. And it's ICOs 3 years ago. There was a lot of garbage, but out of all of that, a few very credible projects emerged and will be here for the long term.
You know who's going to make money in NFTs is the company that charges you $60 or $70 to mint the NFT. They're going to be the ones. It's like the people made the money in the gold rush with Levi's because they sold the blue jeans and the picks to those miners.
Yeah, that's called the miners right now on Ethereum, right? Because they're getting all the crazy gas fees that people are spending to have these things minted.
Yeah, that's where the money is, at least for sure money. Anyway, and there will be people who make a lot of money on it. I'm sure there'll also be people
what's
who won't.
kind of a interesting company in the middle of all this is Kodak.
Kodak?
Remember the Kodak ICO?
So I have always used Kodak as the prime example of how a brick and mortar company could not make it in the digital world. They made so much money on film developing and sales that even when the world went digital, even though they were one of the first companies to embrace digital photography, they couldn't survive because there wasn't enough profit in the digital side of it to match what they had made in the brick and mortar side. So I use Kodak as the example of everything that went wrong with digital. You're saying they're doing well now?
No. I'm saying they tried to launch an ICO.
Oh, God.
That's right.
Some
that was
amount
a while
of time
ago,
right? Right. And I think,
Did they make money?
It sounded really stupid.
Oh, they had
at the beginning.
Kodak coin.
Right, which I think had something to do with
photographers.
Shares, photographers and royalty, which then kind of sort of made sense. But again, like
it was
you have
stock
the infrastructure.
photography. Yeah.
And then they got into, I guess, vaccines. So,
That's the funniest thing about
brand,
Kodak. They understood the digital world. They were right there. They did an ICO and it didn't help.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some brands have done this quite well. Like look at Moleskine. Moleskine came out one of the best note-taking apps on iPad and iOS.
That's true.
They're making tons of money. They got app of the year, I guess.
They can't sell the notebooks, but they can sell a digital version of it. Yeah. Yeah. That's brand equity is what that is, right? There's no reason to use a Moleskine app over, any other note-taking app, but it's Moleskine. Or as I say, Moleskine.
Say it in Spanish.
I once asked them how you pronounce it. They say any way you want. They don't care. They don't care. I do want to talk about the weaponization of social media because that I think is kind of an underlying thread here in just a little bit. Great panel. It's just the two of them, but we don't need more. Amy Webb, Kevin Rose, Lovely having you. Oh, wait a minute. We're getting this traffic report in from the Suez Canal. Should we check in with John Hansen? John is, of course...
South of the fresh food market on Suez Canal traffic report, Evergiven, ever stuck in just south of the fresh food market on 23 Jewel. Nothing doing north or south. Let's head to the north. You can see gapers delays real heavy here, especially as you get closer to Great Bitter Lake, where everyone's just stuck and bitter themselves. Heading up to the north, nothing doing here, too. Breaks all the way up to the Port Said. Same to the south, too. Suez Gulf looking pretty heavy, nowhere going anywhere. And this extends all the way out to the Red Sea. Red Sea more like red brake lights for the as far as the eye can see. Now, your alternates as we zoom in out here and look to the south around the Ethiopian coast, Djibouti, nothing doing there. We're going to have to go all the way around down south. Now, your alternate Madagascar, you can go left or right. Both lanes are open all the way around Cape Horn. Now, this will take you 10 days. It'll certainly save you the 5 or 6. You'll be stuck there. Suez Canal traffic report.
All right, there you go. The latest from the Suez Canal. 1.5.
I heard a crazy number. If you took all the containers off that ship and stacked them lengthwise, they would stretch from Chicago to El Paso. That's how much is on that ship.
That is a huge ship. When you realize that each one of those little boxes you see on the ship is a railroad boxcar, you really get
and
a
now think
sense.
about what's in those boxes, right?
Oh God, yeah. Do we know what the cargo is?
I've heard something about toilet paper. Like there's some of the.
Oh God, they were right. There will be a toilet paper shortage. We just got the year wrong. Our show today brought to you by Udacity. Udacity is brilliant. Started by Sebastian Thrun. He was at Google, and he realized when he was at Google, he said, there's a problem here. People are getting trained for tech jobs, but they're not getting the skills we need to get the people we need to hire. And Google wasn't alone. A lot of the big tech companies realized we've got to create a way for people to get the skills we need filled, and they created these nano degrees at Udacity. It's a unique online educational offering designed to bridge the gap between the learning you've been getting and your career goals. You'll learn a suite of employable skills. We know they're employable skills because Udacity partners with industry leaders and experts who understand the in-demand skills applicable to the job market. They work with Google, IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, and many other companies to create these nano degrees. And I love how they do it. It is not rote learning. It is exactly the way learning should be. In fact, I joined Udacity in 2012. I think I took a Python course there early on because I was so impressed with this. The nano degrees came out. Once you enroll as a student in a specific course, you're going to be prompted to watch the videos. Great teachers, great videos. This is actually kind of a fundamental education philosophy that I love. Get the best people in the field to create these videos once and once only, but now you've got them. And then surround them with hands-on experience. So many times you take online courses, you never really have to test your mettle. But at Udacity, you'll have to complete a series of projects. They'll be reviewed by professionals. You'll be able to get real human help, personalized code reviews, and even mentors 24/7. So you're not alone, but that project-based active learning means when it comes time to get the job, you'll know how to do it. You'll have done it. You'll be able to do it. Some of the most sought-after nano degrees with Udacity for consumers and business clients are in the top 10, data analyst. Yeah, not surprising. Program for data science with Python. That's what I'm looking at for my next course. Digital marketing, there's soft skills as well. Tech-adjacent roles. Programming, development, product management, AI, cloud computing, data science, autonomous systems. People from all over the world use Udacity. And because it's people from all over the world, and because so many people are doing this while they have a day job, Udacity is completely flexible. You can learn at your own pace and your own schedule, so it can kind of work with what you're doing right now, but you'll get real employable skills through project-based active learning covering the leading-edge technology. Udacity also has free courses. In fact, they have some great courses for polishing up your portfolio on GitHub or your resume on LinkedIn. They have courses on how to learn to network and get noticed and get the job you want. So there's a lot of free stuff there as well. I really want you to check it out. I especially this month want you to check out the partnership Udacity has to help close the skills gap for the Black community. They partnered with the Blacks in Technology Foundation to provide 1,000 free scholarships to help increase educational and professional opportunities for the people in the black community. The first cohort of 2021 includes 150 scholarships and applications. They open in March, this month. So you're going to want to get to udacity.com/twit and investigate that. The whole goal, to increase diversity in tech roles by creating a pipeline of qualified candidates in desirable fields like programming for data science, product management, cloud, DevOps, engineering, and so forth. If you're interested, I want you to go to udacity.com/twit today. Look, this is the education that will not only broaden your horizons, but help you get a job. So go to udacity.com/twit right now. Right now, 50% off through May 30th, 2021. But use the coupon code TWIT. That discount will be applied at checkout. 50% off. It's a great deal. Udacity.com/twit. And don't forget the coupon code TWIT. Udacity. It's Audacity without the A. UDACITY. Udacity.com/twit. Chrissy Teigan, the unofficial mayor of Twitter, is leaving town. She and John Legend, I didn't realize this, were tagged, what do they call it? Name dropped, name checked by QAnon. Apparently, the QAnon conspiracy thinks that she and John Legend are running a pedophile ring out of a pizzeria in Washington, D.C. Yes, it's Pizzagate. She has been abused, she says, on Twitter for years. 13.7 million followers. Twitter said she's the unofficial mayor of Twitter. She says, I'm leaving. It no longer serves me positively as it serves me negatively. And I think that's the right time to call something. She says she's been beat up. For years, I've taken so many small 2-follower count punches, that is by accounts that have only 2 followers. They're brand new, created just for abuse. At this point, I'm honestly deeply bruised. Blocked more than 1 million Twitter accounts last July. Deleted thousands of tweets. I know that, Kevin, I think you invested in Twitter very early on, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. Big. Are you still a Twitter guy to support Twitter?
I mean, I know that I love Jack as a CEO, and I know that the challenges at the scale they're at are insanely complex. They're being attacked on so many different fronts.
Yeah, he was in Washington, D.C. this week. We'll talk about that. Yeah, testifying.
I wouldn't want to be running that piece of software. I think that's a product I wouldn't want to be in charge of, but I'm still a fan. I use it. I like the people that I follow, and I get a lot of value out of it as a user. But, you know, just like you, Leo, I'm sure, and anybody else that uses it, I'm not sure how much you use it these days, but I get a lot of random people that will say things, and I just end up blocking them as well. It's just the nature of the beast.
Twitter put together a survey ostensibly to collect people's opinions on how they should handle these difficult political challenges. But I really think the real reason they created, we did it on Wednesday on This Week in Google. The real reason they created the survey was to show you how impossible their job is. When you take the survey, well, let me see if I can find it. They ask you, all right, he's a world leader, not in your country. He's using his official Twitter account, and he's saying something bad about a group in another country. Should he be banned? Should he be warned? Should we put a correction on the tweet? And you sit there and you read all these things, and it's like, I don't know what to do. I'll find the survey. Oh, it's down. It's gone. Oh, well. I wanted to show you the survey, but I think it was very effective in demonstrating. Oh, there it was, by the way. I just closed it. I'll open it up again for you, John. Calling for public input on our approach to world leaders. And yet, I think the real reason they put this up is once you take it, you realize it's impossible. Who knows, Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, I was going to ask you what you found compelling about that survey.
Just how intractable the problem is. I wish it were still up. I guess they took it. It says starting March 19th. Yeah, I guess they only did it for a week. It closed Monday, April 12th. Had you seen it? Had you taken it?
I don't think that they care about the answer.
That's what my point was. They don't.
Right.
That they just wanted you to understand how impossible their job is.
Right. I don't think they care about my answer to that survey. I also think they don't care about capital T, capital A, the answer. Right. Because the truth is that these platforms have undermined public health and safety in our country and in other countries. And there are ways to address those problems, but nobody has addressed them, not in a meaningful, substantive way for a very long time. And so the challenge now is that I had a conversation with some of the execs, I don't know, 10 years ago. I didn't see how Twitter was going to earn the kind of revenue it was going to need to survive over the long term. And it seemed to me like there were alternative paths forward. But too often I hear from folks, we're just focused on the product. We just want to work on the product, and that's what we're doing. The problem is you can't just focus on the product. You also have to think about the next order impacts. Because at some point, you could face a problem.
I have to say, ever since Twitter finally did the right thing with Trump's account, it's been nice and quiet around here. And it makes you wonder why they didn't do it for 4 years.
Because there were speech implications. There were all. I mean, it should not have gotten to that point, right? Because in waiting that long, now you're a platform, but you're also a platform with world leaders who are clearly. It would not have been easy to just shut off that pipeline at the beginning. I mean, because it escalated and it gotten. Yeah,
I understand. Initially, he's the president of the United States. We're going to give him a bully pulpit. He got elected. He deserves the right to free speech, although he said things that other people would have immediately been banned for.
Right, but you can't for 10 years say we're just a platform. We're not making editorial comments. We're not making comments on speech, and then deplatform the president of the United States, even though he is, was saying things
Should they have
that were
done
markedly
nothing?
Untrue. No, I mean, here's what I'm saying. I'm saying you don't want to be a company where you get to the position.
You want to be in that position, period. Yeah.
You don't want to have to make these decisions under duress. It's not good for your employees. It's not good for the executives. You wind up having to make decisions for wrong reasons. My point is, well, before you get to that point, you need to be thinking smarter about your financials and about your long-term survivability and what makes you vulnerable and what makes, what parts of the business are brittle.
They should have been thinking ahead about what they were getting in themselves into, in other words.
I think it's pretty easy to say if you're starting something new today in hindsight. But if you look back on when Twitter was first getting out the ground, we were all, I remember some of my very first tweets just being like, hey, where are we all going to meet up at South by Southwest? It was like, let's just get together and hang out.
That's totally fine. But like 3 years post South by in 20, I don't know, several years.
Yeah, but then I was just going to say, then you had the fail whale, right? Because they couldn't scale it because it was growing so fast. And so it wasn't like they were always behind in terms of the tech stack and always playing catch up, right? And then all of a sudden politicians came online, hate speech came online. I just think it's a very, very tough challenge when you have literally millions of users joining per day. There are going to be a ton of bad actors in there. Like, how do you fix that? Like, I'm curious, Amy, what would you do to fix it?
So I don't want to say the year because I don't remember what year it was. If it was 2012, sometime between 2012 and 2014, I had this conversation with Ev, and the challenge is that you have to figure out a way. I mean, every company has to build risk modeling into their product process. It has to be part of the roadmap. Because otherwise you get to a place where you can no longer make the decisions that would have been easy a while ago. So by 2015, it was pretty obvious that there were bad actors using the platform as, and bots, right? Or maybe it was before then, because I was at State talking about this. But you want to be in a position where you've got some alternatives and contingencies.
I get that.
And I just don't think they did.
Yeah, but when you have, so back then they had Rails was falling over. They were trying to get Cassandra off the ground as a database structure. Cassandra was in its alpha. Like they couldn't even, how can you build anything to go after users when you can't even stand up?
There were more
database?
Immediate risk considerations
I hear you.
than what 10 years from now a president of the United States might do on the platform. They couldn't keep their tech stack working.
Right.
I would say in the last 3 years they should have done a lot more because they did figure out all those problems.
Yeah, fail whale is long gone. Yeah,
long gone.
But I think is that generally, Kevin, you work with a lot of startups. I don't think startups are thinking that way. They're hoping they can survive. They're just hoping they can get the minimum viable product working. They're not thinking, what are the risks down the road when we are
and
successful?
Unfortunately, to Amy's point, sorry, Amy, I'll let you go. Sorry,
no, you go ahead. You go ahead. Sorry, I keep interjecting. You go, and then I'll say what I was going to say.
I was just going to say that to your point, they need to be thinking about this from day one. And honestly, most entrepreneurs are thinking, how can I even get viral to begin with?
Right.
How can I get those first million users? They're not thinking about risk or what happens if this is 50 million people, 100 million people are using this product.
Right. So this is this is not me with a crystal ball using hindsight to say what they should have. Like, it's easy for me to now say what they should have done. I have been tracking this as one of the early users, and I've been tracking this for 13 years, 14 years. The point is that even in the fail well days, even when you're just trying to get the products to scale, even when you've got people coming onto the platform because it's exciting and there's all kinds of interesting things happening, somebody in the organization still needs to be in charge of doing the longer range forecasting. And
you said this, to be fair, I've known you to say this for years. The companies don't think strategically. And
they don't.
That's one of the things you really have long pushed for, is they have to start thinking strategically.
And if we want to stick within the
Medium's
Twitter
having the same
family,
problem. Yeah.
Medium's right. Why are they having that same problem? Because the financials don't work. Why do the financials don't work? So
Medium we should just say, for people who don't know, Medium just pivoted. Ev Williams, who founded Twitter, went off and founded Medium, which originally looked like just a blogging platform. But they decided that they wanted to have in-house journalistic publications so that they could charge a $5 a month subscription fee. And this week, Ev essentially laid everybody off. He didn't lay them off. He gave them buyouts and encouraged them to take off. But I think effectively, Medium has shuttered its journalistic arm, and they're just going to now be a blog platform again. And that's a pivot. Ev's known for his pivots. He's famous for his pivots. I don't know if it's failure.
No, so that's the other. So there's a couple of things. If you are running a company with the very long term in mind, and I don't know a lot of executives that do this well, you have to be operating across different time zones sort of simultaneously, meaning you have to have a strong sense of what you're doing in the farther future, like 10 years down the road, which feels pointless, but there are still data that you can track. And in the present, you have to make tactical decisions using data that you do have access to, and then strategy, and then shifting your vision on where you're headed. And you have to be able to recalibrate, and you have to be able to do this pretty regularly. The problem is that I think a lot of companies, you've got products separate, you've got executives looking at adoption cycles, you've certainly got investors looking at what probable adoption cycles look like, which are always slower than people think they should be. You try to build financial models to match those adoption cycles. And, all of these sort of things start to fall apart. Part of the reason is that I don't think people are taking in enough outside data. Like when they are looking at whether or not something could succeed and what the factors are, they're not using a big enough data set, and then there's a lot of teams that aren't doing this using data at all, or more methodically at all. You just wind up with belief. It's fiat. Everybody gets really excited about something, and then that's that. And in the middle of all this, you need to have somebody who is asking some of these really difficult questions. And building a risk model doesn't need a month and a half. It sometimes just needs like a couple of hours to think things through. And if you and by the way, there are tools to do this. It's not like idle brainstorming. But if you identify that risk early enough in that could result from the normal cycle of product development, you mitigate that early and you turn that into a strategic advantage, or you deal with it, or at least you know that it's plausible on the horizon. And I think that sometimes people get very stuck in doing what they know how to do, especially if they came out of development or product space. And the rest of this work, given how little most companies and most people control outside, it's like, this is really challenging stuff to do, but you have to do it.
Jack Dorsey, along with Sundar Pichai and Mark Zuckerberg, testified to the House Energy and Commerce Committee this week. At one point, Dorsey was asked by Mike Doyle of Pennsylvania whether social media services contributed to the spread of misinformation that led to the January 6th insurrection. Actually asked all three executives. Dorsey was the only one to say yes. He said, we did contribute to that. But he also said you have to take into consideration the broader ecosystem. It's not just the technological systems we use. But yeah, it'd be interesting if there is anything Twitter could have done back in 2006 to avoid their CEO having to sit in front of Congress saying, yeah,
that would have been,
take some
that would have been
responsibility.
early.
Yeah.
2006 would have been early, but
so they wouldn't start when they first started up. They would after they started succeeding. What point did they start thinking about?
At some point, if you are working on a serious business model and your goal is to grow a business, I think, then you have to start prioritizing. And one of the things you have to prioritize is, how do some of these things go wrong? I mean, I can't say the companies, but we work with a lot of these companies
on strategy, on planning,
on their strategy. Yeah. And it's totally appropriate to factor in risk in a way that doesn't set you up to a future class action lawsuit, or in a way that doesn't stymie your product development.
On the other hand, if Mark Zuckerberg, when he's at Harvard planning Facebook, or Ev Williams, when he's, sitting in South Park thinking about Twitter, imagining the success and all of that, it's hard to imagine them also imagining sitting in front of a congressional committee having to justify how their product's used. And if they had, the answer they might have come up with is, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't start Facebook. We shouldn't start Twitter.
We knew that Twitter was being used for Russian propaganda pretty early on in the process.
How do you stop that?
Well, you
make a rule? No Russian propaganda.
You can block IPs. I mean, there's a lot of things that could have been done. I'm not saying this is like an easy solution.
It's very bad. Guys are good at
I'm not saying it's an easy solution. I am saying
you got to be aware.
The thing not to do is just pretend like it's not happening.
Yeah. Does that make sense, Kevin? I mean, you work with a lot of startups and a lot of companies.
Yeah, I agree 100% that you have to first come out and say this is happening and this is an issue. You can't pretend and just kind of shove it under the rug.
They kind of did that, didn't they? They kind of
a bit
said, we don't want to think about this.
I think after it happened, they came out and reluctantly said, it's probably a bigger problem than we first said. Right. But I just don't know the solution. Like I don't either. From a technology standpoint, I can't even imagine. There's just ways around everything. When you allow everyone to have a microphone the second they confirm an email address, I just don't. Like, how do you fix that? It's the
nature of the business. That's what I mean when I say maybe had they really thought about it, they said, well, we should have a dog walking company instead. I mean, it's not.
No, it's being willing. So this brings me back to pivot, because I know pivot's kind of a bad word, right? And the assumption is that there's a failure. I think if you're a really, really smart leader, if you're a smart executive, you should be micro pivoting all the time, because what does that mean? It means it means that you acknowledge you don't have certainty over everything. There are new data that present themselves all the time, and you are reacting to those data by recalibrating your march to the future. So like really, really great CEOs are constantly making adjustments. I think the issue is, and that's what you do. I mean, I think
Mark Zuckerberg is constantly making adjustments to the algorithm, to what Facebook means. I mean, you could see it over and over again, new products, abandoned products. There's no question Mark is micro-pivoting every day of his life. But I think the problem with Mark Zuckerberg is what his priorities are. what end are those micro pivots? Being accomplished? They're not. He's not trying to figure out how to be a better global citizen. He's trying to make a more profitable company.
Right.
Is actually that's actually a fundamental question that we ask all the time. Is the nature of business? I mean, is it not your responsibility to your stakeholders to maximize profit? Is the nature of any business enterprise essentially amoral, that your job is to maximize profit and nothing else? I mean, isn't Mark Zuckerberg a great CEO because that's what he does?
Do you think that the same is true for Amazon? If you look at their returns?
And we may, yes, Bezos is brilliant.
I don't know if,
or was brilliant. He's retired.
But I don't know if Bezos is like 100% modus operandi is returning value to shareholders.
Oh, I guarantee. I guarantee.
I don't know. They got spanked pretty hard for a pretty big R&D investment. I think, I don't know. I have a different opinion than most people on Bezos, and I have no horse in any of these races. Amazon's not a client. I'm not trying to impress anybody. It's not that. I think he's operating on a completely different.
He's strategic.
Different playing field.
He's strategic, right?
I think he's one of the greatest long-term thinkers alive.
No question.
And that's probably.
And
been
to
alive.
what end is he strategic?
If you look at the constellation of investments and businesses and all the varied things that Amazon has its fingers in, it is very clear to me that these aren't crapshoots.
No.
And I don't think it's about returning maximum value to shareholders. I think they are building something
dominant,
bigger, dominant.
Yeah. Yeah, but to what end? To be the most successful corporation in the history of the world. And what is success?
Or is it about changing the way that society functions?
Do you think he's thinking that?
I do.
He wants to make the world a better place?
More optimized place, maybe?
Optimized. Okay. Optimized for happiness?
I think that given what I know about his love of Star Trek,
he wants to go to space.
Well, it's not just that. The original Star Trek had imagined a truly utopian, a better society. You could see that in the selections of the cast.
I totally can believe that that's what Jeff Bezos is trying to do. The problem is there's a lot of hubris involved, and he's an individual, and his own personality brings his own judgment to this, and maybe what he thinks.
I'm not
is
utopia.
Saying
it's perfect.
I'm just saying, if I look at utopia, drivers might be peeing in their vans. Is all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, no. In his utopia, it may be like slaughter everybody who gets in the way of this dream.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that that's But I am saying I don't know. I don't know him personally, so I don't know what his actual desire is.
He looks brilliant. There's no question.
It seems to me, given what I observe the company doing and how they are doing it, that there are other factors in play. This is not about building the
just money.
Most lucrative. Yeah. I don't think it's that. Yeah. I don't know that I would.
It's a nice side effect.
Yeah, sure.
It's a pretty good side effect. He's the richest man in the world.
Right, but it's not money at that point. Once you have it,
no, I understand. After the first billion, it's as Bill Gates once said. You're infinitely wealthy.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Right. It's what you can do. And at that level, you can make fundamental decisions. You can make decisions that change the course of all of humanity. And I think that's what he is.
Do you think, Kevin, I think that's what Jeff Bezos was up to?
Yeah. I mean, I believe that in terms of, I think that you're absolutely right in that these are not just random lucky events. Like he's one of the best long-term thinkers. There's no doubt. I believe that 5-10 years from now, it will be the most valuable company in the world. And I think it'll hold that position for quite some time. They've built out the infrastructure for the future. And I don't see it as an evil corporation as much as I do like a Facebook though, for some reason.
No, I don't either. Although having watched a lot of Star Trek, I do understand that,
Wait a minute. Which Star Trek?
I love the original
Let's
Star
get this
Trek.
out of the way.
The original
Okay.
Star.
Okay.
You know that no single human should have the right to decide how life is lived. No human has sufficient perspective to do that. And so a Jeff Bezos designed utopia is, I think, by definition, not going to be ideal for every human alive. And he should know better than to say, I can do that.
That's fine. And what I would say back to you is, are we not already living in part of that?
Well, maybe. Maybe he's
In
done.
the
it.
United States. Can I just offer you one little thing?
right?
Yeah.
It's like 3 tech companies that control everything we do.
Yeah. That's why Congress is a little late to the game in inviting these people in to talk to us. It might be more than 3. I think you, Amy, in your book identified 5, right? 6?
6th. I call them the G Mafia.
Yeah.
Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, IBM, and Amazon.
Is IBM still on that list?
IBM is starting to fall.
Now that
off the
Watson
list.
has been relegated to the closet.
Can I tell you about a garbage can?
Yes.
Okay. So there's this little device that you can hook onto your garbage can that is powered, and you scan it. So it's a garbage scanner. So when you throw something away, you scan whatever it is, and then poof, magically, a replacement of that shows back up at your house. So you really love Cheetos?
Is this
Okay,
is this the Genican?
It is. It is.
What?
Now, bear with me for a moment with this little tiny thought exercise. So what do we know to be true of Amazon? We know that at the moment, Amazon is not the backbone of our healthcare. However, we do know
They sure
that
want to be. Yeah.
They sure want to be a bigger player.
One of our advertisers is Amazon Pharmacy. So they want
which
to
was
be.
PillPack, which was
also
right. So
an
that has
advertiser.
changed the name.
By the way,
And I'm
we're
not
very
saying-
good at creating. Anybody who wants to advertise on Twitter, I just want to give you a little heads up. Pretty much half the companies who've advertised here were bought by Amazon. So I don't know what that is, but I can give you a list, including PillPack and Audible and on and on and on. So
okay, so you've got this Genican thing, right? You've got this little attachment on your garbage can, and
you don't ever
we
have
know
to
that
shop.
Amazon is in. We know that Amazon's in logistics. We know that they're getting into just pharmaceuticals, but healthcare records management, EHRs, EMRs, AI to help doctors transcribe things, brick and mortar healthcare, all of these logistics, right? All of these different things. So could we imagine a future in which if you are receiving some type of public healthcare, public insurance, that you throw away that bag of Cheetos and a replacement bag of carrots shows up instead, right? They look similar, but one is arguably much more healthy. And it's an effort to optimize your life. So and maybe at some point, food assistance programs become too expensive in this country, given our current levels of debt. And it makes more sense to start privatizing that. People are paying using their data instead of, there's a lot of different ways that the future unfolds. And we don't know what course we're on, but it's useful to ask some of these questions.
Did you know about the Genican, Kevin? I'm buying one right now. I love this.
It's just like their
that
buttons
was
they had, right?
not the point of the story I just told you.
Wait a minute. Where do I get one of those? No, and maybe I'll get the Genican for health, which replaces your Cheetos with carrots. That's a good idea. But
I do love a lot of the stuff that Amazon is doing, though. The fact that they're getting into pill delivery, that's a huge issue in terms of compliance. Getting people to even pick up. I heard something like 50% of medications just are never even picked up.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's brilliant. And the mesh network, sidewalk mesh network. So within about a half-mile radius, if you're in the neighborhood mesh, you can find your keys, find your kid, communicate, whatever it is that you need to do. And again, like who should be building these? Listen, I don't know what we do. I don't see how the antitrust arguments being levied at Amazon are going to hold up. So, and I also don't see our government running out to build a lot of this infrastructure. So again, I look at yes, there are horrible things that are happening in that company, but I also look at that company and I look at the people running it, and it's hard not to be in awe of what they are doing. what they're doing is clearly more than trying to return value to shareholders.
Yeah, it's kind of straight out of a science fiction novel or TV show in this case. By the way, I'm really disappointed. The Genican store cannot accept payments right now. What kind of Kevin? This is like the worst. Your founder's worst nightmare. Here's a guy. I'm trying to buy this thing, $150, and
because everybody's listening right now and they crashed it.
It looks like a Shopify checkout, is it not?
Shopify shut down. Yeah, are they out of business? What happened? I'm trying to order this damn thing. So, by the way, I'm sorry. Your whole point was lost as soon as you said Genican.
My whole point is that...
No, I understood. I'm kidding. I'm teasing.
It's about optimizing.
Yes.
And the question is Amazon really the optimization store, the optimization company?
Yes.
Right? And if that's true, then there are some parts of that are really good. There are also questions we ought to ask about whose version of utopia is okay with us,
right?
Who's optimizing for whom?
But here's the problem:
making those decisions.
We don't get to vote,
right?
I mean, I might not like it. I guess I can not shop at Amazon, but good luck staying away from Amazon if. And by the way, the next step after Amazon Pharmacy starts delivering my meds is they start to get big enough to start negotiating with the pharma companies for a better deal. Pretty soon, I'm getting better prices from Amazon Pharmacy than I am from my doctor, and pretty soon I don't get to vote. Right? Isn't
that Costco today though?
Yeah,
the big reason why people get their meds there.
Well, I get my hot dogs there. Those are
their pizza. Their pizza's good too.
Very favorably priced. Clearly,
but quality is a piece of this. So you can buy glasses there too, but the lenses that you're going to get in those glasses, they may be much more affordable, but they're not good lenses.
Right.
And I wear glasses. I've worn them since I was little. If that's you, it's
your
sight.
Husband's an ophthalmologist, so I know you take this stuff seriously.
Well, I don't take any of it seriously, but he does.
So you have to pay attention at least. It's really an interesting story. Are we entering a brave new world, I guess?
I mean, it's just basically what we're talking about is a bunch of closed loop systems that are going to create beautiful optimizations. So and sometimes scary ones, but for example, I wear a continuous glucose monitor right now. That's one biomarker today. And in 10 years, it'll be 10 biomarkers that will feed into my dynamic insurance pricing, right? Same goes with Tesla auto insurance, which are now offering. They know how you drive, and so they give you cheaper rates if you drive more conservatively.
Interestingly.
It's just all it's all happening.
There is a rebellion against this too, though. I mean, a lot of the stories we have here are things like Google's Flock and, the privacy blockers and the ad blockers. There's a rebellion against this as well. Are people fighting against their own interest by saying, don't track me, man?
The numbers don't support. These are micro protests.
It's a tiny no. It's the people I know. It's not the world.
No, because at some point, either the technology becomes so difficult that you cannot get through the world without it on your own.
True.
Or the convenience just totally outweighs.
We've seen that. Remember the New York Times article where I don't remember if it was Taylor Lawrence or
no, it was Kashmir Hill.
Kashmir
it was a
Hill
wonderful story.
Said, I'm not going to use the big four.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. Or just how many people posted a black square on Instagram on that one day?
Yeah, that really changed the world.
And totally changed the world. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and did their DAUs drop? Did their MAUs drop?
No.
No, not that I know of.
Which is, again, to my point, I don't get a vote. Or do I? How can consumers, how can users, how can all of us impact what is happening? Can we?
I think we can. It's by the individual incremental decisions we all make every single day. I mean, people who have been listening to the show with me on it for all these years know that we provisioned a network for my daughter, and she lives in an alternate reality.
Yeah.
It's one tiny thing that we did that is our way of trying to, optimize for us, which is not
like
good
the
for
parents
everybody.
who say, don't use any technology. I want you to grow up like I did, because you recognize that your child is going to enter a world where all of this is inoperant and you can't avoid it. So it would be foolish to not prepare a child for the world that she's about to enter.
Right. Again, I think it's about being So this is the hard thing. It's about being flexible, and flexibility means sort of continuously staying plugged in and paying attention and making many incremental decisions. And that takes a lot of extra. First of all, it means you have to accept uncertainty, which is very hard for people to do. It makes you feel anxious. And two, it means you have to continuously confront cherished beliefs and make decisions. None of these things are things that your brain is neurologically wired to want to do. And therefore, we don't want to do those things. But my feeling is if you are willing to be flexible, meaning you're willing to accept uncertainty and to make decisions all the time using new data, then
that's how we have to be now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way it is. Kevin, how's your blood sugar right now? Is it good? Do you want to get a snack?
It's 102 right now.
Perfect.
And that's right on my Apple Watch, right on the outside of the display.
Perfect.
It's crazy.
Really? You know at all times?
I don't
That's
know.
awesome.
I would like it to be a little lower than that, but
Okay.
I'll take 102.
anything around there is good. That's good.
What's a good number? I don't know these things.
Well, you don't want to be too high over 100.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you've just eaten, but if you're in I'm in a somewhat fasted state, I haven't eaten for a few hours, so I'd like to be in the
God, it should be like 70.
high 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you haven't eaten in a while.
It shouldn't be 70 would be like stellar.
Diabetic coma. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I embrace. You were the guy who told me about the Aura ring first. I learned about the Fitbit from you. So you've always been into this quantified self thing a little bit.
I love it. I love seeing more about my real-time dashboard. I just did something crazy the other day. So 2 days ago, there's a startup. They're based in the Bay Area, Redwood City, called Prenuvo, Prenuvo, and they have essentially taken what would be like one of these whole body scans, the MRIs that you can get done. And, if you get the MRI done on your brain, that's typically a process that takes about 45 minutes to an hour just on your brain. They can now do a whole body, like head to toe MRI in 1 hour and give you back and detect stage 1 cancer. 9 out of 10 cancers that are detectable by MRI, they can detect at stage 1. Take a look at this video right here. Let's see if I can get it to focus. I might have to turn off the blurry
Is
background.
it on the website? Can I play it on the website?
Well, I was actually showing you my
right?
body scan.
That's you? Oh, yeah. You
Hold
got
on.
to turn off that background thing you got
Yeah,
going.
let me turn off the background thing.
It thinks the phone is behind you or something.
Yeah, you're going to see my spare bedroom, but let me turn this off.
We can scan the body, but we can't get the screen to focus.
Yeah.
Doctors hate this, by the way, don't they? Because this is...
In the early 2000s,
out.
there were...
Oh, wow. That's an MRI of you.
Yeah, and they gave that to me same day.
That's amazing.
And they were looking for all different types of cancers.
Did
and
they find anything? Are you okay?
No, I'm totally fine, but it gives me a good benchmark to have this for, brain size over time. My mom has dementia, so just tracking that closely.
Sure. It's $1,000.
Yeah, it depends on which scan you want to do. If you want to do
it could be more than that. That's just the torso scan. If you want head and torso, it's $17.99.
But the long-term vision here is they want to be at $500. That's the price point they're aiming for in the next couple of years.
Yeah, because these machines are expensive.
Do you get what kind of file is it stored on, and where is it?
In terms of is it HIPAA compliant kind of digital storage?
No. Like,
can I give it to my doctor?
20 years.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So it's in they send it to the doctor. That's a great question. I don't know the file format for these scans, but it's in a typical whatever they send MRIs around in is. But I was looking at bone density and look at actually. This is kind of crazy. Check this one out. I'll show you. It's a little bit like.
Go ahead. Show us. You can show his.
Little,
John thought maybe there's a fig leaf though. It's okay. We're not seeing anything we should.
Yeah,
look at your bone density. Wow.
So Kevin, did they give that to you with any context, or was it like?
Oh yeah,
hey,
they give you.
we'll talk to you.
They give you a full breakdown of every different region of the body, what it means.
Yeah.
Like I have a couple of discs that are starting to bulge a tiny bit. Like all the stuff that you'd want to know. They give you the full report.
It is my sense that doctors are not fond of these third-party scanners. What is your husband?
The crazy thing, though, is 1 in 20 people that come in there, they told me
something's wrong
they
with
find it like a stage 1 or stage 2 cancer, and they're able to address it. No, it's great, though, because they can just go in there, do a quick snip or something. In most cases, they don't have to do chemo. If they can catch it at stage 1, it's massive.
There was in the early 2000s, I think you could go to shopping malls and get a full body tomo.
Yeah, remember that? Yeah.
Called.
I just got a solicitation in the email for, like the traveling tomogram that will.
Right. And I know doctors really hated that, but an MRI is much more, first of all, safe.
Okay.
And I think you detect more. I don't know.
I think there's some concern too that people will get over concerned about things that aren't concerning, or I don't know.
there is certainly the chance of some false positives, right? Like that's gonna happen. But then you do follow-ups, right? Like if you see something that they can't tell you whether it's cancer or not, then you can go. I had a friend that went in for a scan. They saw something odd in her lung. And they said, okay, well, great. Now come back in 6 weeks and we're going to see if anything's changed.
Wow.
Nothing had changed. So they said, okay, this has most likely always been there. Don't worry about it. And, but that type of stuff can happen.
And that's the kind of thing your physician would like to be part of.
Oh, they get, your primary care provider gets all the data right away. So they send it at the same time.
Okay.
We should ask why, why is the assumption that everybody's going to be anxious and freak out, and that this is bad. It's bad to have this information. And I think unlike Japan and China, for example, where from a very young age much more about your body, you have a much better handle on your personal, like everybody knows what their temperature is. We don't assume that it's 98.6.
Right.
We don't have that culture of preventative care in the United States. And so I think there's this sense that people will worry because we haven't ever been exposed to what it's like to have some understanding what's going on inside of your body.
How often do they recommend that you do this, Kevin? Do you do it once, or you do it
every couple of years?
Every couple of years. $2,500 for the full Megillah.
But the prices will be dropping down. I had a chat with the CEO, and he's like, we're going to get this to $500, and hopefully get insurance to cover it as well, because you can imagine they're going to save a ton of money if they detect things early on.
No, insurance doesn't. So that's, I think, a common misconception about health insurance in this country, because people move around. They don't want to do preventative care. It's too expensive. They presume that if you've got something, it's the next guy that's going to be paying for that, not them.
Right, and that's a problem.
That's a big problem, obviously.
We are very close to doing full genome sequencing at birth, right? So before that baby leaves, you've got the sequence.
Well, that's another problem.
But I mean, this would be a good thing, because like I know that I've probably got genetic predisposition for some things, but I lost my mom at a very, very early age. I don't have anybody to ask,
Right.
And that's who we tend to rely on.
I'm going to do this Nuvo thing.
Comparative data over time.
Yeah.
Have you, Amy, have you taken your 23andMe data? I take it you've done that?
Yeah, I've done.
And have you taken it to external analyzers, like the ones that really look deeper than what 23andMe will tell you?
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Because 23andMe will give you your data. You can export it.
I'm a big believer in getting as much of your own data that you can as you can. So
I should do that. So you send it to a third party and they get the data, and they know more than 23andMe. Why doesn't 23andMe do that?
Well, 23andMe is just super conservative.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want to tell you might have
trouble with the FDA
ApoE4 and you could have higher rates of dementia, Right. But Found My Fitness is the site to go through. Rhonda Patrick, she's a great scientist. She has a team of scientists that are basically, all they do is they say, if you have this genetic SNP, if you have this genetic polymorphism, it is tied to these research papers that show that you might have an elevated chance of X, Y, or Z, right? So it just is showing you more of
this one?
That's her site, yeah. And genetic report up the top top. I think she gives it away, or it's not much. It's maybe $20 or something. I don't know. I don't think she charges a lot for it. But yeah, take your 23.
So you have no concern about 23andMe having your spit and having your genome, and
yes, I do.
You do.
I do. Yeah, but
especially since now apparently they've done a SPAC with Virgin, and Richard Branson has your spit now.
I like immediately when they launched, because I knew they were coming. I guess this is me not thinking through things. It didn't occur to me. I was also desperate at that point. We were trying to get some some genetic data for other reasons. And anyway, at that point, it was like contraband. So I had to order it through a friend and have the friend like guess it to me because
contraband DNA tests. Wow.
But there are others. There's a personal genome project. I mean, there's a ton of places.
Yeah, I tried to sign up for that, but they didn't take me. But I don't care. Somebody pointed out you probably should. Your kids might care because they are your genotype, so they're a product of your genotype, so they might have some concern that information about you might apply to them as well.
Hey, I thought about actually taking it and putting it on the blockchain and make it the first NFT genome.
Brilliant. I'll buy it. It'll be the first. I'll buy it. Kevin?
Actually, wait a minute. That's not a joke. That's actually a really interesting idea, right?
No, I really thought about doing that.
The genotype does have value, right? Especially if you combine it with a phenotype.
No. I mean, so wait, here's where this gets really, really interesting. It's anonymized, theoretically. It's just code. It's just code.
Right.
And then there is a way to establish ownership over it.
The Personal Genome Project was very clear that we are not going to keep this secret. If you sign up to do this, because it's a scientific research
This was George
project.
Church and a couple of people.
Church,
so it was
right.
in the pool of, it was Esther Dyson and
Esther
George.
Dyson
and
did
there
it.
were just
That's
a
right.
handful of people who did it.
Yep. I tried it. And you had to pay like $10,000 because it was a full genotype. But I tried to do that.
It's like less. It costs less than a pair of Air Jordans to get your sequence now.
I know.
Yeah. There's a company in China called BCI. But Kevin, I don't know if that's really interesting.
Okay. You guys think about Kevin's NFT on his genes. We're going to take a little break.
And then if you can clone me, do you own future versions of me?
Yes. And you get 10% of all clones.
and if I have a company that pays,
you get royalties on all future clones.
If my company is the one that paid for the clone, then is it the parent company?
Who owns the clone?
That owns who's the parent? Who gets to make the decisions? Yeah.
This is why I don't like the future. Don't like it.
Legally, there's nothing preventing me from having a company and going into an IFV center and using the company to pay out of pocket. And therefore, the ownership would tie back to the company, not to the person.
First, we got to invent cloning, though.
It is invented.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it doesn't.
Well,
you can't make
you can make a
really
sheep.
well, but
you can make a sheep that dies early, but other than that, we got it down. No, they're doing all sorts of weird.
They're doing dogs now. Yeah.
They're doing dogs. Yeah, you can clone your dog. That's right. And do they live a normal lifespan, the clones?
I don't know, but Mr. Toast is 10 years old.
Yeah, it might be time to think about that. Get the clone. Toaster's pretty much a perfect dog.
Oh, he's the best.
I would clone Toaster. If I were Toaster's owner, you should put Toaster on the blockchain. Put his genome on the blockchain. I'm telling you, people would love it.
I could never clone Toaster though. Like, when you love something like that,
there's only one.
There's only one.
There can be only one Toaster.
I can tell you where to go to get the Toaster's DNA sequence though. If you need that.
Amazing.
It's in China, right? DCI?
BCI is
BCI. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like an episode.
BCI and DJI got together and made drones. Drone
clones. Clone drones. This is like an episode of Futurama. I don't know what's going on.
Too far.
Our show today is brought to you by Mint Mobile. I'll tell you one thing. You don't want to give any more money to the big wireless providers. Those guys suck. After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless, if we've learned anything, we've learned there's always a catch. There's always a hidden fee. There's always something. So I have to admit, when I first heard about Mint Mobile, I thought, premium wireless service for $15 a month? What's the catch? There isn't one. In fact, I've been a happy Mint Mobile customer for more than a year now. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. No stores means no crazy overhead, and they pass the savings directly to you. It's really a brilliant, brilliant plan. How much do you pay for your wireless service provider? 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks a month? Why? Why? When you can get unlimited talk and nationwide talk and text, high-speed data on the nation's largest 5G network, You can bring your own phone. They'll send you the SIM for free. Other companies will charge you for the SIM. They don't even charge you for the SIM. So your contacts go along. You can even have your phone number transferred, ported over to Mint Mobile. And if for any reason you're unhappy, they've got a 7-day money-back guarantee. Switch now to Mint Mobile. Get premium wireless service. It's such a great deal. Why are you paying more? I'm literally paying a third for the exact same service. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/twit. Cut your wireless bill, $15 a month. Mintmobile.com/twit. Just remember the little green fox looks kind of like Ryan Reynolds. I think those are Ryan's glasses, actually. Mintmobile.com/twit. $15 a month. That is a good deal. It's minty fresh, too. Mintmobile.com/twit. We thank him so much for supporting Twit. Thank you for supporting Twit by using that special address so they know you saw it here. That's important to us. Mintmobile.com/twit. Oh, what other future things can we talk about? Every time the tech CEOs go to Congress, the only thing I come away with is how little Congress understands what they're talking about. Did you see any of it, Amy? Did you follow any of it? Did you get any sense that any of the members of Congress had any idea what they were asking or what they were talking about? I feel like it was just it's politics.
Listen, here's the Washington D.C. are the people who run the legislative branch. Sort of ignores what's happening in tech until they perceive there is a problem.
Right. And their worldview of what the problems are is kind of limited to the Beltway. It's like, well, the problem is a Beltway problem, Right.
And I'm sure you guys saw on Twitter, really rare shift. Amazon was publicly railing against Senator Warren and
they're scared. They're scared. Right.
So I don't know if they're scared or I'm not sure. I don't know what was happening on the comms, like at the comms team on that day, but the incendiary tweets, I think started on Friday.
Yeah, that can't help. That really cannot help.
We're pretty, and they're continuing. They're pretty intense for Amazon, which is historically, that's
according to Recode, it was because Jeff Bezos was pissed. He was pushing the comms team.
So I don't know. We used to have something in this country, which a lot of Twit listeners know about because we talk about this a little bit, but it was called the Office of Technology Assessment. And the job of that group was to inform the legislative branch before they came up with policy and voted and everything else, to help them understand basic science and tech. And it was a nonpartisan research group that got defunded in the 90s. We don't really have a replacement. There's a federal foresight community. There's a couple of pockets of activity here and there. There are a lot of external think tanks, some of whom do a pretty good job. But ultimately, if we have a vacuum, and so it's fun to make fun of our legislators not asking questions that make any sense.
Yes.
It's political theater.
Yes.
But the problems don't go away. And so, in the meantime, we've got a geopolitical foe on the other side of the world that's pressing at China, that is pressing ahead and has showing that it is a militaristic, economic, and technological pacing threat. So we got to get our acts together over here.
The tweet from Dave Clark, who is CEO at Amazon's consumer division, was actually a subtweet against Bernie Sanders. I welcome Senator Sanders to Birmingham because, of course, Alabama is where there's the unionization push, and appreciate his push for a progressive workplace. I often say we're the Bernie Sanders of employers, but that's not quite right because we actually deliver a progressive workplace. Ow! $15 minimum wage, healthcare from day one, career progression, and a safe and inclusive work environment. So if you want to hear about $15 an hour in healthcare, Senator Sanders will be speaking downtown. But if you would like to make at least $15 an hour and have good healthcare, Amazon is hiring. It's a little provocative, but...
It's provocative. Factually, though, they're not incorrect.
Yeah. It's kind of a good point.
The fact that Amazon employees and Amazon comms is now doing this in a public forum, in this particular public forum, they're not doing this in the Washington Post, right?
Yeah.
They're doing this on Twitter.
Well,
I think is a sign.
Tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Bezos has been known to write an editorial or two. I'm sure that may also happen. You don't really believe the peeing in bottles thing, do you? The official Amazon news account tweeted. If that were true, nobody would work for us. Okay. Okay. A little back and forth with Elizabeth Warren that began with her criticizing the company's tax payments. Very low. The Amazon news account quote tweeted Warren with this message. She says, "I don't write the loopholes you exploit, Amazon. Your armies of lawyers and lobbyists did." Oh, admittedly, they did get it passed through the Senate. And then that was in response to, "You make the tax laws, we just follow them," from Amazon, which is also a good point.
I'm just
I don't
surprised
know if this is bad PR for them. I think this might be good PR. Given the state of the nation, I think there might be people rooting for them after this.
I don't know. All of this smacks of, when I see these types of important debates taking place in a small number of characters on a public platform like this, it smacks a little bit of like people complaining about customer service on Twitter because they can't get a hold of people in any other way.
That's the only good reason to have a Twitter account these days, is so you can, because for some reason companies pay attention to Twitter. Yeah. And by the way, I think Warren took the bait and fell for it because she tweeted she was going to fight to break up big tech so you're not powerful enough to heckle senators with snotty tweets. Oops. Yeah. She, by the way, nothing good ever came from a Twitter fight. Take it from me. Stay out of the Twitter fights. Senator Warren now knows. It's just a no-win situation. Wow. I think Amazon wins that exchange. I hate to say it.
I don't know. I think we all lose because everybody forgets.
Right.
Like in 5 minutes.
Right.
Just move
Honestly, this is, as much as people will talk about whether they like or hate Clubhouse, the one thing I do like is it's an actual audio conversation between
that is
multiple people,
not recorded and played back later.
Well, that's true. But, also Twitter has been experimenting with this functionality as well. Like I've seen it. I don't know if you all have taken place. Yeah, it's basically a Clubhouse clone, but that would be fascinating. Like forget that, to your point, Leo, these in a small amount of very few characters, a lot gets lost and it comes off weird. Let's have a real dialogue about this stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's a solution. I don't know.
I don't think that's feasible though, because that all of these tweets are being lawyered in advance. I mean,
of course, it's all comms,
so it's hard to lawyer curated. In advance.
Right?
They're not going to want to. They're not going to want to do that. Yeah. The only thing that really upset me about the hearing was Mark Zuckerberg's willingness to throw the entire tech industry under the bus, saying, "Oh yeah, here's what you do. You only make Section 230 protections for companies based on their ability to meet best practices to fight the spread of bad content." In other words, we can do it. And you shouldn't give Section 230 protection to somebody like Leo because, he doesn't meet best practices to fight the spread of content. I think that is a complete and utter... how can I say this politely?
It's disappointing.
It's disappointing.
Right. However, consider the context. So we have some of the people implicated. I recognize that we have listeners that cross a wide spectrum of political views.
Yes.
And I am politically independent. However, we have people who are launching networks that have historically spread lies, misinformation. So given that context, there are definitely going to be people listening who would listen to that saying, I don't think we want to exacerbate the current problems that we have with somebody starting a new, should that platform, enjoy the same protections as we do. So I think
I think about myself and I have a chat room. We have comments on a forum. We have a Twitter clone called Mastodon, twit.social, and none of those would be up if I didn't have Section 230 protection against liability for, libel. And so, or slander or misrepresentation. I can't moderate those in any reasonable way. Mark Zuckerberg can. Facebook has the wherewithal to do that and to follow best practices. So it's not going to hurt him if they modify Section 230, but it's pulling up the ladder for everybody else. It's saying, yeah, I made it, but what we don't want is any competition. I don't know. You know what? I don't want to see Section 230 changed. I've yet to see a good proposal for how you would change it in any reasonable way without hurting the dialogue on the internet. And yet, I do acknowledge, we've got a problem. I don't know.
It's kind of a weird question in the weeds that maybe Kevin knows the answer to. I don't know. So, Solid, right? The new distributed.
No. This is Tim Berners-Lee's proposal for you own your data and you control it, but you can let it out in some reasonable way.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, here's a question: if you've got a new platform that has totally different architecture, are you grandfathered in? Would Section 230 apply? Or Project Mastodon, Project Maelstrom? Remember Project Maelstrom?
What's that?
That was another distributed computing project.
It was similar. It was from BitTorrent. Yeah.
Kind of similar idea that it would have been impossible to shut down any website. Yeah. When you're talking about fundamentally different architecture, I don't know. I wonder if these
Isn't that what IPFS is, though? That's a standard, and it's out there, and that's the whole idea. It's a distributed internet.
So
it's coming, right? Like you're not going to be able to stop these.
Brave already supports it right out of the box.
Brave supports it at the default install level. It's just a matter of time. Sadly, I don't even know how you shut that down. I mean, in some sense, Tor is kind of that today, but you can find the original Tor servers and shut them down.
So why do you think IPFS is unfortunate? Is it empower people like Parler and Gab and all the Nazis?
I can imagine. Yes, exactly. I can imagine there would be a social network for Nazis and hate groups, and they would just not be able to track or shut down the content because it is encrypted and you don't know where it's pulling the data from. And so you can't shut down the entire network. So it may be slow. Like, I don't think it's going to be performant, but it will exist, and it'll be a place where people share those ideas and they propagate. And that's scary.
And that's what was making me think of Section 230 in a world in which you've got you've got that type of distributed network. I don't even know.
But it
kind of doesn't matter, right?
You've already said, Kevin, and I agree with you. There's no technological way to shut down Nazis.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's whack-a-mole right now, right?
Yeah.
Is what it is. It's like anytime there's a major social network, they jump on it, they try and crush them.
And there's
then they move
Parler,
around.
and there's Gab. And I mean, these things are going to happen.
Well, it's not the technology. I mean, obviously that enables it and it helps the ideas spread. But the real question is not how do you kill, which technology do you kill? The question is, how do you kill an idea?
Exactly.
That's the issue.
If it's out there, we have a different way. I think it needs to be dealt with in a different way. And I don't think shutting people up is the way to deal with that. I think.
Right. But it's like, how can you prevent the spread of that information and the recruiting process? How can you delay the recruiting process?
Yeah,
right?
No, it's definitely a problem. Yeah. Clearly, look at QAnon. I mean,
the origin of story of QAnon absolutely blows my mind. I cannot believe there are so many legitimate, much more legitimate sounding conspiracy theories, but how did that origin story make it past people's better sensibilities?
Yes. There's not even a basement in that pizza parlor.
No, the fact that there are that many people, that this story has taken that much of a hold over so many people points to much bigger problems.
I agree.
Much bigger problems.
Now, there is a question, and I'm not enough of a historian to have an answer. Maybe you guys are. Is it worse now than ever? Certainly, there are better ways to recruit. I mean, Facebook and Twitter, and there are hundreds of ways to recruit. So we know we can do that better. But didn't people believe equally far-fetched nonsense forever? Isn't that the human condition? And it spreads well, even without Facebook and Twitter. Maybe not
right, but
quite
on
as well.
YouTube it spreads really well because you're basically an audience of one.
Well, there's that issue of
like,
radicalization as well, that YouTube promotes this and pushes you into this, and it's not just, by the way, it's not just QAnon or white supremacy. There's radical terrorism in a lot of areas, and so if you support QAnon, you may not support the fact that Al Qaeda also can use YouTube to
yeah, I mean, we call them these YouTube rabbit holes for a reason. It's because we get a piece of content that's like, oh, that's kind of interesting, and then it just takes you a step further and a step further, and that applies to all different types of content.
Almost as if they designed it that way. They didn't. But I always blame the algorithm. I always blame the recommendation engine, and I think algorithm is really the enemy on Facebook and YouTube, and to some degree Twitter. Twitter is less algorithmic, but it's more than it used to be. If it were all just chronological or it didn't recommend the next thing, I don't know if it'd be as dangerous.
But the business model.
Well, there we go
supports,
again.
Right? Okay.
There
so
we
in
go
science,
again.
there's a concept called dual use, and it applies in technology as well. Meaning, you've got some fundamental groundbreaking shift in technology. Let's say an messenger RNA vaccine that has potential other use cases that are not beneficial or benevolent. So you can't make those go away. You have to, again, it's constantly thinking through next order impacts, triangulating, and making adjustments.
Right.
But when you've got a publicly traded company and with fiduciary responsibilities, YouTube is going to have to invent a totally different business model, or it's going to have to convince everybody to take, that it's going to make less money.
Kevin, what's your BitClout price?
I don't know what my BitClout price is. I don't know. I'd have to go pull it up.
You are. I could buy you on BitClout, right?
You could buy me, yes.
Okay.
And you could buy any Twitter user, I believe, on BitClout.
So this is another. This isn't specifically to create a decentralized social network, or is it?
I mean, it is that, but I think that honestly is the kind of worst piece of it. Right now I'm $3,762.67.
Oh, I'm gonna buy you. It's either that or the MRI.
Higher than Elon Musk.
Really?
No, Elon Musk is 84,000.
How do I find out what I'm worth on BitClout?
Elon Musk.
I'm doing a search for you right now, Leo. You got to tie in your account though. Maybe
I have never tied it in. I don't use Twitter, so I haven't tied it in.
Okay, that's what it is then. Yeah.
And the last time I checked, BitClout was not even it was so slow that it was DDoSed. It was hard to use.
They had a lot of people jump on and figure it out. It is a very odd social experiment. Not the decentralized social media piece of it, but the idea that you can say that rather than buying a company, I believe that there's value at the individual level, and I want to own value in that. And so everyone is their own currency at some point. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but there's something interesting there.
Mike Arrington's been pushing it as a censorship-resistant platform. So Mike probably is very interested in finding a censorship-resistant platform. This whole thing, it's a brave new world. That's all I can say. All right, I want to take a little break. We'll have we'll kind of wrap this up in just a bit, as much as I don't want to, but honestly, I can't keep these guys for more than 3 or 4 hours. They really start to they have to pee in bottles. That's no good.
It's true.
Somebody will be tweeting about me next. Our show today, I don't know if you noticed the clean air in our studio. You probably didn't, because nobody's been in here except me and John for a year. But we do think it's pretty important to keep that air clean. We are all spending a lot more time indoors these days. I think we know by now, a sick office, syndrome, and ventilation is very important. Keeping that air clean is important. Indoor air can be 5 times worse than outdoor air, according to the EPA. Molecule is reimagining the future of clean air. The molecule is not existing filtration technology. It's a scientific breakthrough in air purification called PICO, or photoelectrochemical oxidation. And it's really cool. Our molecule has a catalyst in it. We change it every, 3 or 4 months, that attracts and traps harmful pollutants, even very tiny particles that would pass right through a filter, like viruses and bacteria and mold. It collects them, and then it destroys them. It doesn't just trap them, it destroys them. It's really very cool. And there's a molecule right for every size room. There's the Molecule Air Mini for smaller rooms up to 250 square feet. The original Molecule Air that we bought at our house, actually we have 2 now, one for Michael and one for Lisa in both bedrooms. And then we now have in our studio the Molecule Air Pro for rooms up to 1,000 square feet. And if you are in a medical office or a dental office, the Molecule Air Pro RX for medical purposes to destroy bacteria and viruses in the air. Clean indoor air now is more important than ever. Molecule's PICO technology meets the performance requirements and FDA guidance for use in helping reduce the risk of exposure to COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, in healthcare settings. Of course, you're still going to wash your hands and wear your mask and get your vaccine, folks, but it's an important preventative extra layer of virus protection. We know that. We know now ventilation, air purification, absolutely critical. Molecule's technology and filtration systems have been tested and verified by independent third-party labs. In fact, if you're at all skeptical, I highly recommend you go to the website Molecule with a K, MOLEKULE.com. You can see customer reviews there, but you can also see the white papers, the research. Molecule now offers its breakthrough PICO technology across a range of products for the home and beyond. Pick the unit that's best for your space. You can put together a discounted bundle right now. To save up to $120 on an air purifier, go to molecule.com and enter the code TWIT120 at checkout. But read the research. Read the papers from some of the most respected labs in the world, including our own Lawrence Labs over here in Berkeley. MOLEKULE.com. We use it at home because it's very important to breathe clean air. I'm a believer. Molecule.com and the offer code TWIT120. Don't forget to use that so they know you saw it here. Before we go on, let me just quickly show you a little, I'm so excited about this, little short movie we made all about everything that happened this week on Twit. Do you know who Ryan Kaji is? If you have little kids, you do. Probably the most successful YouTube creator of all, 29 million subscribers. This is from Bloomberg Businessweek. There are 6-year-olds on YouTube who draw larger daily audiences than Tucker Carlson.
That makes me hairy.
Previously on Twit. Smart Tech Today.
But now we've got somebody who knows a thing or two. They are a member of the Thread Group and the Zigbee Alliance, as well as brand manager for Eve. It's Tim Booth.
Hands-on photography.
The key thing is to focus on a single lens, a prime lens, meaning not a zoom lens. As soon as you take that literal first step, something in your brain flips and you go, oh, well, now that I've moved forward, maybe I should also crouch down a little bit. And you will get better and better at your photography because you're restricting yourself.
Tech News Weekly.
There have been ongoing stories for quite a while about Amazon working workers to a point where the people who are doing the deliveries, they don't have time to go off the beaten path and find a restroom. The Amazon News responded, "You don't really believe the peeing in bottles thing, do you? If that were true, nobody would work for us." Vice got in touch with some different delivery drivers who work for Amazon and showed bottles with urine in them that these Amazon delivery drivers had used to do their restroom breaks.
Twit. It keeps going and going and going.
Boy, somebody in the chat room said, don't ever let this show end. But I think maybe Amy and Kevin might rebel if I never let this show end.
You sang that song, Sticks, right? Don't let it
Don't
end.
let it end. You are betraying your 1980s heritage right there. New York has launched a vaccine passport that you can pull up a code on your cell phone or a printout to prove you've been vaccinated. I have the little CDC card.
Yeah, that's totally not reproducible in any way.
Yeah. In fact, the word has gone out. Do not put it on Instagram because people will just copy it. So
I laminated mine.
Well, now that's a question. You can go, was it Office Depot? No, Staples offers free lamination. So I thought I'll go down, I'll get the free donut from Krispy Kreme, go over to Staples, get the free lamination. But then don't they need to write on it, Amy? Don't they? Isn't there?
First of all, what is this free donut you're talking about?
Oh, you didn't know about that?
There are no free donuts where I'm at. What is this free donut?
Krispy Kreme, best promotion ever. You go in, you show them the card, they give you a donut.
Huh. Is that like a one-time? I don't really like
every day for the rest of the year. You can go back tomorrow. You can go back
for
the
real?
day after. Yeah. Do you really want to eat that many Krispy Kreme donuts?
I think Krispy Kremes, whatever. I think Krispy Kreme donuts are super gross. I like they're like way too sweet and
they taste great going down. I've yet to. I always regret eating it.
No COVID, but you get the diabetes. So
yeah,
you got that.
That's good. But you've got the 24-hour diabetes monitor, so you're okay.
That's right.
In fact, I want you to go get that donut and then tell us how high.
I know exactly what it would be.
Oh, like 180, 240.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you're not diabetic. You're just testing this out, right?
I'm doing it because I have poor glucose disposal. So it's just like something that we discover when taking a glucose tolerance test. So it means I have to like do extra more cardio to get in the normal range.
I am type 2. I mean, I control it. But
are you a metformin user or no?
I have a little metformin in my pocket. Yes.
There's some good life extension properties.
I know.
Associated
you know,
with
the
metformin.
doctor said your A1C has been so good you can get off the metformin. And I said, but wait, I want to live forever. Doesn't it have other values? And it's pretty harmless, right? It's not a.
I mean, it's been around forever. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't take a huge amount.
It's really expensive.
But I told him, no, I want the life extension benefits.
Hey, as long as we're on this
So
subject.
he said, eat more Krispy Kreme. You could stay on metformin for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kevin, do you do any nootropics? Do you do any
I bet he's microdosing as we speak.
No, actually, I don't do a ton. The only thing I do is I have a genetic mutation that I found by doing that whole 23andMe thing.
Oh, really?
That makes me a bad methylator of B vitamin. So my homocysteine is high. And so I take a special high dose B vitamin to knock down the homocysteine, which has been linked to, our plaque in the arteries. So my dad died of a heart attack, so I got to pay special attention to that.
Yeah, he was pretty young.
Yeah, he was early 70s, so that was a bummer. But
for me, that's pretty young. I'm very hyper aware of how close to mid 70s I am getting. So I'm gonna get that Prenuvo. I'm gonna send in my genetics to that company. I've learned a lot. You might have saved my life this week, Kevin. Thank you.
I do the sauna. I do sauna, and sulforaphane is also something that I do.
Infrared or what?
No, actually traditional like sauna.
Is that good for you? I love saunas.
So dude,
we built a sauna.
Rates drop. All-cause mortality goes down by like 30%.
Really? Like steam or dry?
You have to get to a certain temperature, I think, is what the sweet spot's 174 for 20 minutes a day, Fahrenheit.
Now, before you were doing the cold thing, have you stopped doing that?
I don't do the cold as much. In the winter, I will just to kind of like harden up a little bit, just to kind of like give me. It's like a nice extra cup of caffeine in the morning.
Yeah, your heart's pounding. Yeah.
But I do the sauna at least.
I've always wanted a sauna. But I like steam. So
that's what I do too.
Yeah, I like because I don't want.
Well, I just pour it over the hot rocks.
Build one.
Yeah. Did you build one, Amy?
We built a pretty. We built a pretty awesome sauna.
How safe is
in
that?
Our house? It has an automatic shut off. I mean, you're not going to like fall asleep in there, but
right. For you, it's not an open flame; it's a electric heater or something.
It's electric, but it's in an enclosed space, and it's amazing.
I would love that.
We also optimized our bed, as long as we're just quickly trading some ideas here.
Optimize your bed. I don't know if I want to know about this.
There's this company called Ooler that makes a fitted blanket with conduit running through it, and in it so there's all
it's cooler without the sea, is it? Yeah, it's a bed cooling system.
Now I will say, if anybody listening to this is anywhere near this company, you need to fix your janky ass app and the Bluetooth connectivity, which is hugely problematic. But I sleep at 60 degrees every night. And then
you're supposed to sleep
I have
cold.
It set
It's better for you to sleep cool, right? Yeah.
Right. Well, it regulates my body temperature for me at night. Oh. And then I have it set at around 5 o'clock to start because I like to wake up early.
Warm you up.
So it goes up to about 115 degrees.
I don't think Lisa's going to accept this. Should we actually have an electric blanket because she gets so cold? I don't know if I should get
a weighted blanket on top of me. Yeah.
I had that Ooler as well, and I loved it. It was great.
God.
But
the app, right?
I will say Sleep 8 is better. It's just better app, better tech. It's less
Sleep
like
8?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's basically like, when you lay on the Ooler, it still feels like you're kind of like laying on something because there's those cords and stuff going underneath you. Sleep 8's super cozy and it does all the same things, better technology. It looks at your HRV and everything and adjusts things dynamically if you want it to.
How do you spell Sleep 8? Because I found it.
Or maybe 8 Sleep. Maybe they do it the other way around.
Sleep.
But they have one that they sell a mattress that has
EIGHT 8sleep.com.
I like our mattress. We've got like a.
I have a Casper.
But they have one that zips on top of your existing mattress, so you can do it without without buying a whole new mattress. That's the one I got. I didn't want to have to buy a whole new mattress.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's interesting. Like, there's a whole bunch of sleep tech trying to optimize your sleep, and you're sort of unconscious. You're letting somebody else take care of you while you're asleep. But I will say, my husband has a conduit weighted blanket, and I just have the weighted blanket. So we now. But I'm sleeping better than I've probably ever slept.
Sleeping cool is
my body
important.
temperature regulated.
I'm not going to. The people who are watching and listening are now saying, next thing Leo's going to tell him he tapes his mouth shut. So I'm not going to mention that.
I've done that.
But I have been doing that after reading James Nestor's Breath.
Yes, great book.
Great book.
With what kind of tape?
Now you got me started.
Get on Amazon. It's
3M micropore surgical tape. You'd only lose.
I've got a super bad latex allergy.
No latex, I don't think, and you don't. You don't just a postage stamp. So if you had to, because sometimes I have to sneeze, and there's nowhere to. So you don't want to tape the whole thing. This way you go, comes out the side. But all right, enough of that.
And a humidifier. I also have a
humidifier. Okay. So
yeah,
you have
this
so
week
many
we down a very deep
bedroom.
rabbit hole. Oh yeah, I've got our bedroom is
but
very
the
high
quest
tech.
for a good night's sleep is perhaps one of man's most worthy causes. Because especially as you get older, I don't sleep well at all. And if I could have a good night's sleep just once, I would love that.
Weighted blanket.
Weighted blanket? Really?
That's huge.
Really?
Yeah.
It is.
Really? You both agree. So
sauna, I bought
blanket.
an extra heavy one. I sleep under a 20-pound weighted blanket now.
Nice. Which one did you get?
It's I forget the name of the brand. It was a little. It uses microbeads, so I've had problems with them before where they pool up.
Yes, you don't want that.
Is this like the thunder coat that you put on your dog when there's thunder, and because they feel
pretty much
it's the same thing? You just basically
it makes you like all wrapped up in a little baby cocoon, and like it feels.
And it makes it so you can't flop around. I'm an active sleeper, and I've had insomnia. I got to tell you, I fall asleep and I don't move at night, and I'm just getting more restful sleep now.
This just in from the chat room. 3M micropore surgical tape is a latex-free, hypoallergenic, paper-based tape. And man, that stuff sticks. It is. Okay. It holds your mouth.
Well, I don't want to ruin my beautiful skin.
No, I was worried that I was going to start. I do it every night now. I can't sleep with that. It's. You know what? Maybe we're supposed to torture ourselves at night. Like, maybe I should have somebody come in and spank me, because the weighted blanket, the tape over the lips, the cold. It seems like we sleep better if we're in pain.
Sleep is extraordinarily important. It is the moment that our cells regenerate. Like you got, if all the things to optimize in my life, that's the thing that I care most deeply about optimizing.
Yeah.
You should have Matt Walker on your show, Leo, from Why We Sleep. He runs the Berkeley Sleep Lab.
Oh yeah, he's great. I've heard him.
Fantastic. Yes. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
He knows about all the latest tech on that stuff. It'd be a good, fun tech guest.
You guys are good fun tech guests. Kevin Rose, it's such a pleasure. His new podcast is Modern Finance, MoFi.net. Highly recommended. At Kevin Rose, plug something else. What else?
No, that's it. I mean, I just hope people tune into the podcast.
It's
trying
really
to
good.
All the stuff. The problem that I see, in fact, with my own family, with my sister and everyone else, is that there's so much going on in the world of decentralized finance and cryptocurrency. It's confusing. So I just want to like break it down for the average consumer, because I think there's going to be the entire financial backbone is being rewritten right now, and it's a really interesting time to invest in that. So I want to help people find the right projects to get excited about. So that's my hope.
Awesome. So great to see you, Kevin. Always a special place in my heart for you. So
feeling is mutual, brother. Thank you so much.
All right. You are, as they said in the chat room, Twit Gold. And Twit Gold also, of course, to Amy. We love having you on, Amy Webb. Future Today Institute, their new report is out. You can get it at the website, which is it futuretodayinstitute.com?
Yeah, and it's futuretodayinstitute.com/trends. And you can get all the reports there. And we open source all of our research. So everything is open source and available for you to read and make your own. Just give us credit.
It's funny, Amy, I was reading that. I went to check it out beforehand. Before we started the show, I wanted to see some of those research reports, and I was reading through them. They're awesome, number one. And number two, I expected to hit a paywall. I clicked on one. I'm like, okay. Yeah. And actually the report just comes up. It's awesome. It's like all free.
Thank you.
She gives it away, folks. Nice. 14 years in a row.
Yeah. I had it pointed out to me that if we charged $1 per download, that we would have several million extra dollars of revenue a year as a company.
$1's fair. $1's fair.
But I don't know. I can't continue to say that I'm a futurist, because I'm trying to leave a positive dent on the world.
Nice.
And then charge people a bunch of money to get the research that I think would take them there. So
you're not freaking Jeff Bezos. Yeah.
Right. Scroll up a little bit right there. That blockchain one is the one I checked out. It's really good. There we go. In fintech, that report right there.
Recommended by fintech expert Kevin Rose.
No, I mean, I was shocked. Like a lot of the stuff that I have analysts that work at True Ventures that go into this stuff, and we're always looking at the new projects, and you hit on a lot of it. When was that report published? Was that soon?
It launches every year at South by. So it launched officially on March 16th. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Awesome.
How was South by, Amy? Was there anything? How did it happened?
Listen, I got to tell you, and I'll keep it brief, but my heart goes out to them. They they were in a rough spot
2 years
last year.
Running
they didn't
now.
have they didn't have the right insurance last year, so they couldn't make a lot of adjustments. I think this year they did about as good as job good as good a job as you could have hoped. And Hugh Forrest and Sarah Lynn and that whole crew that put together the content, I really think they did. I really think they did a good job. So
awesome.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear it. Next year, let's all meet. Frankly, you're the two people I'd like to spend an evening eating, with dinner and drinks with. But this was the next best thing. So thank you so much for spending your evening with us, Amy Webb, Kevin Rose. Really,
thank you, Leo.
Appreciate it. Really fascinating stuff. Thank you. We do Twit every Sunday afternoon, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, 21:30 UTC. I give you those times because you can watch us do it. We can watch us record almost all of our shows live. The stream is at twit.tv/live. There's audio and video there. If you're watching live, you've heard me mention it several times today. We have a great chat room. They're chatting live, irc.twit.tv, and they're there 24/7. There's something going on there all the time. It's run by our community. We don't have anything to do with it, but we're glad they're there. irc.twit.tv. You can also, of course, watch on demand. I mean, it is a podcast after all. There are every episode we've ever done is actually online at twit.tv for every show. Go there. There's a YouTube channel for every show. You could watch there. I think that's a pretty complete collection as well. Or get your favorite podcast client and subscribe. If you do, you'll get it automatically the minute it's available, so you won't miss it just in time for your Monday morning commute. Leave a review if that podcast client allows reviews. Leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. Help spread the word. Tell other people about our show. We do have, as I mentioned, a forum that you can communicate with if you're one of those asynchronous listeners. It's like a chat room, but it's there anytime you want to use it. That's twit.community. You're welcome to join. And as I mentioned, we have a Twitter kind of replacement. It's called Mastodon. It's a federated microblogging service. Our instance is at twit.social. If you're already on Mastodon, you can follow me at Leo at twit.social. If you're not, join our instance. You can then follow people on every other instance. So it's kind of a cool technology. And we have now more than 1,000 members on twit.social, which means it's starting to pick up. It's actually kind of fun. There's activity there every day. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Another twit.
It's amazing.
Bye-bye.